Okay, I'm going to call meeting to order. It is now 6:30. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to Community Board 3, January 2021, first full board meeting of the new year. I'd like to welcome all our attendees and our elected officials, honored guests, and full board and public members to our first meeting of the new year. Okay. Larissa, I'd like for Larissa to explain the Zoom rules to everyone so that we can all be on the same page.
Sure. Good evening. Welcome everyone to full board. This evening, bear with me one second. I'm going to pull those rules up. Okay, so the meeting, first of all, I'd like to advise you that it is being recorded. If anyone if all attendees could sign into the chat with their name and their affiliation, if that's applicable, and please, if you are not speaking, we ask that you keep yourself muted to reduce background noise and cross chatter. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand and you will be acknowledged. No. If you are calling via phone, if you are calling in via phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Bear with me. Okay. And also, please keep the chat. Please don't keep cross chatter in the chat. The chat is for attendance and for technical issues. So if you are having technical issues, you can let us know in the chat and we will reach out to help you. Okay. Okay, so I guess we'll start out with, bear with me one second.
Also, I'm sorry, Larissa, yes. I just want to make sure everyone understands that we're not raising hands. If you are not a full board member and we're not addressing anything right now in this during public session, this is just an opportunity for people to say what they need to say.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to start off with public session. Before we get started with that, I have a few additional instructions. During public session, when you are called on, you will have exactly 2 minutes to make your comments. There will be a timer up, so you'll be aware of when your time is about to expire. Only the person who signed up to speak may use that 2 minutes, and there will be no back and forth or questions during that time. We do have a limit of 4 speakers per subject. So if you are speaking on that subject, please keep to your subject. If you change to a different subject that is already full, I do reserve the right to cut the speaker time off. Second, I also ask that you keep in mind that this has been a very rough year on everyone. Please be respectful and treat others the way you would want to be treated. Direct attacks will not be tolerated during public session. I reserve the right to cut off any speaking time if an attack occurs. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. You can, once I call your name for your comments, I'll share my screen with the timer, and you will have 2 minutes to speak. Bear with me one second. Okay, first speaker we have up is Harry Bubbin. Are you in the Zoom? Harry Bubbin from East Village Special District. Okay, I'm not hearing, I don't see him in the chat.
He doesn't seem to be in the list.
No. Okay, so we'll go to the next person on the list. Hope Beach.
All right, let me put myself on.
Hi, yeah, I signed up, as from the Orchard Street Block Association, and
Right.
we are wanting to speak about the lack of transparency and the changes, particularly in the SLA subcommittee, which affects us greatly here on Lower Orchard Street. We feel that the community has not had any input in these matters, and that the community is being left out of any public discourse around these matters. Another issue that this intersects with is the permanent open restaurants, where the community has not had any opportunity to weigh in on the length and stipulations of these. And we are requesting a truly open town hall where there can be interaction with the community about these issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being so brief. Okay, let me reset. Okay, the next, excuse me, the next speaker on our list is DM Boyd. DM, let me put up the timer and you will have 2 minutes. Go ahead. DM, can you unmute yourself?
She's there, but she's muted.
She's muted. DM, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, can you please start my time over because we're not used to
Yes,
webinar?
absolutely. Go right
Give me
ahead.
1 second. It's not, the screen is, something's wrong. They're not on the screen anymore. Can you please start my time? Am I on the screen?
Yes.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. In response to the recent exec meeting discussing Zoom webinars used in the public process, or more aptly, how to restrict or limit the public process, we'd like to go on record that the new direction is disturbing. As CB3 and the public become more reliant on tech, our governing bodies must carefully consider the reactions. If the new and younger members on the exec committee lean on tech and push for positive change, more transparency and inclusion, and instead of being in lockstep with the status quo, both democracy and the community at large would be better served. The goal should always be to guarantee and encourage public access and participation, not narrow it or, quote, lock it down. 474,000 or 1 in 3 older New Yorkers don't have basic internet. 500,000 New York City households don't have access to the internet. As the pandemic has exposed, the digital divide, excuse me, the digital divide falls along the class, age, and racial fault lines. Internet inequality is a very real thing, and this board should be doing everything in its power to create opportunities to narrow inequities, bring inclusion to the process so that often marginalized voices are represented and heard. At each public meeting, the clock is not going. At each public meeting, the board shall set aside time to hear from the public. The objective should be not to censor what is said, control visual access to the community members, or create who can participate or what questions can be asked. The misguided notion that to reach efficiency in the public process, the C3 Community Board 3 must use tech to bury transparency and chill public participation is nothing short of dystopian. We have attached 3 white papers that we will urge community board members to read and send out. They directly talk about technology and equity and about transparency and open meetings. We hope that you will read them.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, the timer seems to be broken.
Is the timer not running?
It's still at 33 seconds.
Is this recording just for, can we have confirmation these meetings are being recorded?
Yes,
The
she
meetings
said
are
that in
being
the
recorded
beginning.
and it will be publicly distributed.
All meetings are always on the website the next day.
Well, yes, we appreciate that. We're just noticing there was technical difficulties making sure.
Yes.
Sure, thank you. Let's see. Can someone tell me if the timer is running now, just so
It
before
is
we
now.
okay.
It is
All right,
now.
great, thank you. I'm going to reset just to make sure we give everyone fair time. I want to make sure everyone can see the timer and that it's running properly. Okay, thank you, DM. Our next speaker is Deborah Gonzalez. Deborah, are you in the group? Let's see, I don't see her. Last call for Deborah Gonzalez.
Maybe not.
Okay, moving on, we have David Troutman. David, are you in the room? Okay, David, I'm going to ask you to unmute and I will start the timer. David, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I think I got it unmuted there.
Okay, great. Okay.
This is a statement prepared by the LES dwellers for Community Board 3 public session, January 26th. Regarding past resolutions drafted by Alex Militano, who was the chair of the Community Board State Liquor Authority, using her legal background and those from other well-run community boards such as Community Board 2 and Community Board 5, were consistently resolutions were consistently drafted and chock full of precise language that provided transparency to the community and businesses alike. In many cases, the resolutions are the only documents that the residents and the community groups and our elected officials can reference to ensure what was presented at the community board meeting is how the business is actually going to operate and is an accurate historical account of the premises. The past resolutions were useful documents for residents when filing complaints to New York Police Department and New York State Liquor Authority. In our case, the past resolutions helped secure removal of some of the chronic, very, very bad operators for not following the agreed upon method of operation. Current resolutions coming from the State Liquor Authority Committee are short on these points. Does not always include the method of operations in the whereas clauses, does not include any history of the premises, does not include a description of the premises, seats, tables, etc. The State Liquor Authority uses that information. These premises can be a problem if they open and the premises are operated differently. Does not mention the 500-foot rule or any of the benefit to the community in approving the license. Does not document the community opposition substantially and uses general vague language such as minimal noise complaints without disclosing or defining how many 311 calls is considered minimal. While we agree that the SLA meetings are often long and exhausting process to residents, board members, and
Excuse me.
the narrative being constructed.
Excuse me, David. I apologize. I'm not sure if the timer is working. I believe we're having technical difficulties, but we have reached the 2-minute limit. Can someone confirm with me that they're seeing the timer move or not? Because
It's now working.
okay, thanks, Susan. And I apologize, David, for cutting you off short. But we do have
May
a
I finish?
2-minute
Very brief.
limit.
Hello, Larissa.
Yes,
the timer
David.
keeps going on and off sometimes, and then
Mm.
it'll jump 50 seconds or something like that.
I'm wondering
So
if
it's
it's
not
my
always
internet
working.
connect. I'm wondering if it's my internet connection. So
Certainly possible. Today's been problems
oh,
citywide.
very the
East
last
Coast,
2
yeah.
days. So David, if I
Yeah,
could ask you as a
continue.
parliamentarian, if I could allow David Troutman to finish.
Okay. The narrative being constructed that recent meetings split across 2 days held under new leadership were better run and faster is false. We compared past split meetings and the new meetings clocked in approximately the same hours. However, the significant difference is that while the past and current meetings lasted the same amount of time, the quality of the resolutions was not the same. Prior resolutions under Alexandra's leadership were significantly better.
Okay, David,
you very
I'm
much.
going to stop you there. I did give you additional 30 seconds, and I apologize for not having the timer working. But thank you for your time, for your statement. I'm going to go on to the next speaker.
Larissa, if the timer is not working, can I offer to have a timer here and I can say when it's 2 minutes?
If you could do it 1 minute and 30 seconds, that gives the speaker a little extra time, and I do appreciate the help.
Great, I'm
If you
happy
guys
to do
don't
that.
see, if you don't see my timer working, so I appreciate it, and I think the speakers will appreciate it as well. Okay, our next speaker is Ben Carlos Thipin, and I apologize if I butchered your name. Ben, are you in the room? I do not see. Linda, do you see Ben?
Yeah.
Okay.
See.
Ben, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, we can hear you now. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer for you.
Okay, great. So my name is Ben Carlos Stipin. I live on Monroe Street in CB3, and I am also in the real estate business. I own 2 properties with retail in CB3, and I'm also a broker. And I've read all about the SLA chair changes, and I honestly think it's great. Particularly with my properties, we've had issues with retail tenants being so scared of getting in front of the SLA committee in CB3 that they don't even bother. And from a brokerage perspective, we see this all the time. So I think a huge contributor to the vacancy crisis that has been consuming CB3 for the past several years has has been the prior leadership of the SLA committee. So I'm really pleased that there's new leadership and that it's so far been more efficient. And as to the complaints that I've heard about the new regime, so to speak, these are very common process complaints that I think are a reflection of people being upset that they no longer have the power that they once had, and not legitimate complaints about outcomes for CB3 residents and stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Our next speaker is Kim Tran. Kim, if you're in the room, you can unmute yourself. Hi, Kim, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, great. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, okay, so my name's Kim Tran and I'm a resident of Rutgers Street. Before moving to Rutgers Street in August, I lived on East 5th Street for 10 years. And I've been in the neighborhood, stayed here in New York City throughout since the beginning of COVID. I haven't left the city at all. And what I've really observed is I've seen how restaurants and bars have been so important to my happiness and to the general community, especially during this difficult time. I feel a connection to my neighborhood because of all the wonderful operators who have adapted to the new circumstances. So similarly as the sentiment before, I applaud the SLA chair change. Two of my favorite local restaurants that I were recommended for liquor licenses at the January meeting. And I thought the meeting was respectful of their time and definitely more efficient than in the past. And I know how important selling alcohol is to this establishment's survival. So I'm happy to receive the recommendations. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you, Kim. Our next speaker is William Thomas. William, if you're in the room, you can go ahead and unmute.
Oopsie, William.
Don't see William. Okay, let's move on to Christopher Lee. Christopher, if you are here, go ahead and unmute. Okay, Christopher.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead. Start your timer.
Okay. For the 22 years I've been part of the Parkside community, the bar has been a cornerstone within our diverse neighborhood. We've hosted community fundraisers, celebrations, and memorials. Our front door staffed 7 days a week with friendly, competent security guards who keep our corner safe. While the Lower East Side exploded with nightlife, our neon has always been a beacon for folks who actually live in the neighborhood. Just like most small businesses in New York, it's been a battle for us to keep up with the rising cost of operating in the city even before COVID. But unlike other businesses, this isn't the Parkside's first pandemic. There's been a bar here since 1908. It was built as a single-story building 113 years ago, and I'm humbled to carry on this legacy. This year, we've suffered substantial financial loss, and while we're all hopeful about the vaccines, even the most optimistic official timelines project we'll be operating at reduced capacity for years to come. The Washington Post put it at 10 years. This isn't going away this spring, no matter how much we want it to. We've opened for outdoor dining, but our corner is very challenging. It's not pleasant or safe experience for our customers to sit on Houston Street with traffic whizzing by. There's only so much control we have over this environment. We need space to keep our customers safe and socially distant. A roof deck is the only solution to keeping this business alive now, while hopefully recouping some of our losses in the future. I'm within my rights under the current executive order to self-certify this project and move forward, but I'm coming to you because I want to do this the right way. We know the biggest concern is noise, and we're mitigating that potential problem with the design, the construction, and the management of the roof deck. The SLA committee meeting on January 13th was ripe with technical difficulties, so I want to make sure this is heard by all the members of the board at this time. I immediately accepted every concession asked of me, the most notable being that the roof would close at 10 p.m. on weekends. I've always worked with my neighbors to maintain their quality of life, and this will not change. When people worry about New York City losing its soul to national chains, it's businesses like the Parkside that they're trying to save. The Parkside Lounge is not a newcomer opening up on East Houston, but a historic part of the community this board serves, going through the biggest economic challenge of any of our lives. Please take this into consideration and help the neighborhood institution make the necessary changes to continue for us to be part of the Lower East Side for decades to come.
Okay,
Thank
Christopher, thank you.
William Thomas has appeared.
William Thomas, so we're going to back up to that. Okay. Okay, William, and just before, let's see, William Thomas, before you speak, if you don't mind, I just have one other thing. Please refrain from using people's names in your comments. That can be considered a direct attack. So again, I didn't catch it earlier, but if you can, please refrain from using individuals' names. Okay, William, I see you're unmuted. Go right ahead.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So I just want to say one very quick thing. You know, I'm a resident of the East Village. I live on 6th Street. I'm very aware that a lot of the SLA issues can get very contentious. But I just wanted to come out and say that, you know, like I've applied to the community board for 3 years to be a member. I have never actually gotten on. But I'm someone who firmly supports, you know, new people and new blood getting the opportunity to step up, to be able to take leadership. And so I appreciate that Community Board 3 has done so. I'm not going to name names, but I think that the person who has been chosen is very responsible. And I think it's important for her to have a fighting chance. So I just wanted to say that. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for being very respectful. The next speaker on my list is Bristia Perez. Bristia, if you're in.
She's here.
Okay, Bristia, if you can unmute.
I miss. Wait, let me look. Where'd she go? Oh, there we go.
Okay, Bristia.
All right.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay, so my name is Bristia, and I'm here with Shiv, who also spoke last time in front of the community board. We are here in support of the building of the Parkside rooftop. We live in the building next door at 315 East Houston on the first floor. We actually rent the apartment with the yard that the rooftop overlooks. Chris has been nothing but accommodating and attentive to any concerns that we may have. We can personally testify to the fact that there are people that currently trespass and hold parties on these rooftops around us anyway. We personally had to deal with cleaning up red Solo cups from our yard the next day. I truly feel that giving Chris the opportunity to regulate that and make it his own and he will look out for our best interests. Additionally, we've been coming to this corner for years. This lounge was a big selling point to us moving here in the first place. We've never seen this corner as bad as it is now. So many people on the streets, trash panhandlers, just having a drink on the sidewalk gets your phone stolen. My phone stolen, actually. Not only would this rooftop revive our corner, it will give us a place to unwind safely, but also give this bar a fighting chance in this harsh economy. If not, I'm truly afraid, based on what I've seen, this one-story bar will be torn down and turned into another luxury building, which will absolutely not think twice about blocking our garden sunlight. Bars like these are a dying breed. I hope you give them a permit so that they can have a chance to survive.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ricia. Reset. Our next speaker is Michael Jaggers-Radoff. Michael, if you're in the room. Michael, okay, go ahead and unmute and I'll start your timer.
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Michael Jaggers-Radoff. I'm a longtime patron of the Parkside, but I'm here supporting the project in my capacity as a local resident, a property owner, and also the president of the condo board at 100 Norfolk Street. I'm voicing my support, drawing directly from experiences that have just been mentioned, where, I live on Delancey Street. You've seen a market increase in closed storefronts and open air drug use during the pandemic. I met Chris, the owner of the Parkside, at the Build a Block meeting where I discussed these issues with local police. And so there are a couple community benefits that I want to just emphasize that the Parkside will bring. Security being first and foremost. It is the only business right now on Attorney Street that has any reason to operate at night. The presence of its security guards and its clientele will be an active deterrent to the kinds of matters I'm describing and that Bristia just described. In addition, the building is only suitable to be a bar. If the Parkside closes, I think that that corner is going to be unoccupied for a long period of time. I would point to the closed Suffolk Arms Bar, which is also a bar located on Houston. It's now just a closed storefront, and it has been for many years. So it's not easy to redevelop that corner if the bar has to close. The Parkside also provides a virtuous cycle business opportunity for a couple of other immediately adjacent businesses. There's a deli on Houston across the street, and also the Tremazzini Sandwich Shop, both of which get clients from the Parkside. And that expands that flow of customers coming and going, which enhances security, brings activity to the neighborhood, and helps push back on some of these forces. At the previous community board meeting, the #1 concern was noise, which I think everybody's sensitive to, but I want to highlight, as Bristia just mentioned, the Parkside is located on Houston Street. So, yes, there may be, discussions on the rooftop, but that will almost certainly be drowned out by the presence of all the traffic noise there already. So it certainly should be considered in conjunction with these security benefits that I've just mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next speaker, reset, is Luis Bernal. Luis, are you in the room? Oh, there you are. Okay, if you could go ahead and unmute.
All right. So good evening, everyone. My name is Luis Bernal. I live here on Houston Street, half a block away from the Parkside. And I have lived here my entire life. That's 40 years. And the Parkside has been a part of my life, my family's life during that entire time. I grew up here, like I said. I went to school on Ridge Street. I graduated from Stewart Park. One of the constants has been the Parkside, and it's something that we have to help save. It's, I had written something down, but I need to speak from the heart because I'm just tired of seeing so many places that I grew up shutting down, and it's not fair that the Lower East Side is losing its soul, and that's what the Parkside does. It's the soul of the Lower East Side. It's held the old, the new, the future together. One of the things that I've loved about being there is just the people that feel safe coming there from all different walks of life. And I've been hanging out there since I've been 21. But I used to go there beforehand to go knock on the door and have Marty open the door, and so I can yell at my dad to come upstairs. And I don't even drink anymore, and I've been hanging out there for over 10 years during that time. So I think it's only fair that we allow the few establishments that are struggling, that are trying to do good for the neighborhood, to be allowed to do whatever they can to survive in these new times. We need to save this Parkside, and if giving it a rooftop deck is a way of doing it, we should do everything possible to save the Parkside. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Before we go into the next speaker, I do want to remind everyone that the chat is not for cross conversations or for comment. It is for requesting technical assistance or for signing in. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Nora Breen. Nora, if you're in, you can go ahead and unmute.
Don't see Norm.
I thought I saw her a minute ago.
Yeah, maybe, but she's not here anymore.
No? Okay, we'll come back to her if she comes back in. Jody Oberfelder. Jody, are you in? No. Okay, Stuart Zamsky. Stuart, are you in?
Nope.
Okay, moving right along.
He was on before.
Yeah, I did see him as well.
Sorry.
Oh, he's there. He's there.
Stuart, you're there?
His name is disguised.
Oh, okay. Stuart. Okay, so this is Stuart Zamsky?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, Stuart, I'm going to go ahead and start your, if you could unmute, I'll go ahead and start your timer.
Thank you. Stuart Zamsky of the East Fifth Street Block Association. And I'd like to thank the community board for its open restaurant town hall last week. I think we all got that it's a disorganized mess regarding enforcement, jurisdiction, COVID dangers, and rogue operators. And this is all understandable given that it's an emergency measure. But why is it being considered vigorously for permanency now during this time of crisis and with no public input? Because of this, I request that open restaurants be put on the Transportation Committee's agenda, or that we conduct another town hall where live public discussion can happen, and request that the community board issue a resolution regarding permanent nature of outdoor dining like its neighbors in the West Village. I attended Community Board 2's town hall last night, and I feel like Community Board 3 has a lot to learn from its neighbor, because the difference between the meetings was stark. Our meeting resembled a presentation or a webinar. Theirs resembled an actual town hall, which encouraged participation. The residents were an asset, not an obstacle. Questions came in live. Some residents were heard live, and the chat was left open. It was an asset to everyone in the meeting. Christian Klossner of OSC said that he combed through the chat several times to address issues and gauge citizens' feelings on the topic. Chat should remain open. Chairpersons addressed issues related to their committee, especially the SLA chair, who's most affected by open restaurants. Board members reflected views of their community and asked thorny questions on behalf of their community. They've had multiple meetings and have issued a resolution on the matter. CB3 has held one meeting grudgingly, and it has limited participation of its community. It pandered.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off there. You have reached the 2-minute limit. But thank you. Thank you for your comments. Okay. I'm going to just ask one more time if Nora is in the room. Okay, moving on. Jody Oberfelder.
Nope.
And Laura Sewell.
She's there.
Okay, Laura, if you could go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I'm Laura Sewell from the East Village Community Coalition. The EVCC suggests the following friendly amendments to the SLA Committee's resolution regarding item number 5, Via della Pace. The State Liquor Authority uses the SLA Committee's resolution application and questionnaire in its decision-making process. This documentation supports both the community and operators should any issues arise. The name of the establishment is spelled correctly in the item number, but not within the text of the resolution, where it appears as VILLA della Pace. I don't know if this has been corrected. Because the physical floor plan is not described in the resolution, add the following to the first whereas clause, with a method of operation and physical floor plan as described in the CB3 questionnaire. Add an additional whereas clause, whereas there are 20 full on-premises liquor licenses within the 500 feet of this location per the applicant. While not as thorough as the resolutions traditionally produced by the SLA Committee, adding this information will better describe to the authority what CB3 intends to support and flag for both the public and the authority when a 500-foot rule hearing is expected. While not pertinent to this application, reference to minimal 311 complaints is made in 2 other resolutions on the agenda tonight. We urge the committee to avoid using such subjective terms as minimal. The authority considers both the history of the applicant's other establishments and of the premises itself, which applicants may not even know. Looking into 127 East 4th Street, item number 14, we found instances where police took action a few years ago, including an arrest. Describing this history as minimal undermines the community board's position on future applications they might recommend to deny outright on the basis of adverse history. We never had any power, but we did have support, and I thank the outgoing co-chairs for that.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. And I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name.
No worries.
Okay, our next speaker is Tamara Daly.
Tamara, yep. Okay.
Okay, next is Tommy Loeb. Oh, Tamara, I apologize. Tamara is in the room. Tamara, if you can unmute. Tamara, can you unmute yourself? Okay, we're going to go on. I'll come back to you in just a moment. Tommy Loeb, are you in the room? Okay, Tommy, can you unmute?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
go
you.
right ahead.
Thank you.
Sure.
I want to update the community board on the East Side Coastal Resiliency Plan, since most members don't attend the Parks Committee and would not be up to date. I'd like to remind you that in September of 2018, in the mayor's announcement, he said the adoption of the new design follows a value engineering study performed earlier this year and a review of the project by a panel of experts with experience from around the nation. The borough president did hire an independent expert who had some serious questions, and the city withheld documents. He reported that the city withheld critical documents from him. At the same time, the city has awarded Pratt Institute $150,000 for 18 months to facilitate the community advisory group. And that is both poorly attended and has proven to be useless. All they do is send out an invitation, they facilitate, and they do minutes. That at a cost of $8,000 a meeting. That should have gone to, that money should have gone to Community Board 3 to provide technical assistance. I'd also like to say we need the elected officials, all of them, to become accountable and get us the information which we've been requested. Just recently, we submitted a Freedom of Information request for the study, the value engineering study, and the response we got from the Department of Design and Construction was, the Department of Design and Construction has processed your above mentioned FOIL information request. However, DDC's research of agency records revealed no responsive document for your request. How can this community board sit on its hands while a $1.45 billion project proceeds and no critical oversight? You need to do your job, and so do the elected officials.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Tamara, were you able to unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, let me reset the
Great, thank you.
timer.
Sorry for the difficulties.
Sure, no problem. Okay, go ahead.
I'm speaking for the Orchard Street Block Association as well. I live on Grand Street. My neighbors and I are actually here tonight to request a legitimate town hall regarding the recent changes, the chair committees and the way that it was done. We're requesting support as well what Stuart Zamsky was saying previously. We are requesting also, if possible, a session regarding the Open Streets, Open Restaurants permanency plan as well. I think a lot of people are confused and they want more information regarding how that is going to play out and what it's going to mean to people where they live and their businesses as well. Question and answers where we're not limited to time, and that would be very helpful, I believe, to the residents. We're concerned about the methods that were utilized in the SLA chair and arts and culture chair changes. Term limits are something that we definitely support, but we're concerned more about the way that it was handled and the lack of transparency and information that was given to the community. We feel that the community board should support the best interests of the whole community, not only the business interests or the real estate interests, because residents need retail diversity in the neighborhoods. So the community board should take everybody into consideration. One side should be fair and a transparent process. And we're asking definitely for a town hall where we can have our questions answered and addressed. It's very important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And let's see, we have Tommy. Our last speaker is Wendy Brower. Wendy?
Lindsay, L-I-N?
No, Wendy, W-E-N-D-Y, Wendy.
She's here.
Okay, Wendy, if you can go ahead and unmute, I can start your timer.
Thank you. I'm Wendy Brower, an eco designer and 30 years CB3 resident. Happy Tu B'Shvat. It's the Jewish New Year for trees. It's nearly 2 years since CB3 passed the LES Community Tree Canopy Resolution, and we were all here when NYC Parks announced that CB3 was getting 1,000 new street trees. I joined the new tree task force along with Trevor, Michael, and other interested residents. I also joined the Tree Stewardship Project, currently paused for COVID. Although Parks has changed to splitting the 1,000 trees between CB3 and CB6, as well as how they count the trees that were planted in 2019, I hope CB3, which has so many vulnerable residents, will continue to advocate for stewardship training in street trees, which cool and clean the air we breathe. Today, I am drawing your attention to Avenue D and East 3rd Street. That's the corner of my workspace, where just inside the NYCHA fence, 3 mature trees were cut down last Friday, and many more are marked for removal. I checked the FEMA plan for Lillian Wald, and this area is outside the designated work zone. I have alerted NYCHA staff as well as elected officials, as these trees are absolutely vital for community health. I request that CB3 stand behind my demand that each of these 50 to 60-year-old trees be reviewed before destroying them, and to better protect the trees that are to stay but currently lack even protective netting. I made a slideshow at bit.ly/wildtrees. I'll put it in the chat. For the health of the people and the planet, let's make protecting what we have an imperative, especially as we are about to lose 1,000 trees in East River Park in the name of climate change adaptation Esker style. It's essential that this community step up caretaking our environment and prioritize public health and thriving trees now.
Okay, thank you.
Could you ask Harry Bubbins is here? There's somebody called Harry, but I don't think it's him, but maybe.
Oh, Harry, are you here? I could go ahead and start sharing my screen again.
He could raise his hand, maybe.
Yes, Harry, can you raise your hand? Okay, we have a hand raised.
I don't think it's the same person, but this Harry Bubbins would have his full name.
I do see Nora in now.
Here's Nora. Do you want to let Nora speak?
So give me a moment. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. I'm sorry, I've got so much going on my screen.
Hey.
Hi, okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, that was really crazy. I'm on my phone now. Thank you. So, yeah, my name is Nora. I'm on the Suffolk Street Block Association. I'm a member of that association. And yeah, a couple things. So I would agree with everybody at the first of the 2 CB3 meetings of this year under the new leadership. I'm surprised the way everybody's talking about how much better it's going or something. These were 2, this is a very new leadership. And so I think that remains to be seen. And I understand, personalities are such as they are, but I too always found the leadership of CB3 to be open to the community. I wish that we could see each other, because a lot of us have been attending meetings for many, many years. And without being able to see my fellows, I have a hard time knowing if the man who said he was a real estate person lives in the neighborhood, because we all know there's just article upon article upon article about the lack of business diversity. I would like to say I fully support Parkside being able to stay open however they can, and agree. The community is not against establishments. We are just, again, or I'll speak for myself, It's just the overrunness of liquor licensed establishments. And so, yeah, I just wanted to thank you for having the meeting and say I'm fried because I was trying to get unmute, and just try and say that, you know, that the community, somebody said, you know, well, the community is upset because we're losing our power. What power? Our neighborhood is all bars. We don't have power. I think that's so interesting. We have a voice that we would like to be heard, and we don't want the bid. I mean, I know our community.
Okay, Nora, I'm going to have to stop you.
I had one. I had
No,
three.
I'm sorry, but we
Okay.
did have 4 speakers on the SLA, and we did have you listed as for a public announcement.
I beg your pardon. There was no agenda number that I could see for the this public comment period in terms of new leadership. And
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Okay. All right, and that is going to conclude public session.
Named Susan Peters, who said she signed up to speak.
Susan Peters. I do not have her on the list.
When did that come in? I don't have that.
I don't know. She just sent me a chat.
When did she? I had everything by. I don't have that.
Okay. She says she signed
I
up.
sent it weeks ago, plus again today. Is she speaking on an issue that hasn't had 4 speakers?
It doesn't say. Should we let her speak briefly and see what it is?
I'll ask
Can
her
she
if
put her
it's a new
subject in the
issue.
chat?
I'm sorry, can we just ask her what she's going to be
Yeah.
talking about?
Right.
What
Can she put it in, if she can put
Just
it in the
ask
chat?
her.
Yeah.
Just ask her what it's about.
Can she?
Weeks ago.
What is she speaking on?
Wants to speak about health dangers from 12,000 antennas.
Okay, that's a new subject, and I'm sorry I did not see that.
Okay, I'm letting her speak. Unmute yourself, Susan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 2
Oh,
minutes.
great, thank you. I'm a member of New Yorkers for Wire Tech. I'd like to inform the board members of the health dangers with the introduction into our city of wireless antennas on practically every street corner. 8,000 are already installed and 4,000 are more planned. I'd like to strongly encourage you to read a December article in the magazine The Washington Spectator by Barbara Koppel. Let me know and I can give you the article. It outlines how the telecom industry has captured our government regulators and the press and retaliates against scientists who don't toe the line. The result, New Yorkers are being subjected to levels of radiation that affect everyone's health. Here are some examples from the article. Scientists worldwide have produced over 2,000 studies that warn that the devices and antennas expose people and animals to develop tumors in the brain, thyroid, prostate, acoustic nerve, and breast. Robert Kane, an electromagnetics engineer who tested wireless devices for Motorola and other firms starting in the 1980s, was able to confirm that cell phone companies knew their products could harm and even kill, but like the tobacco, asbestos, and fossil fuel industries kept the news quiet. The telecoms purchased seats in the watchdog agencies. For example, in 2013, President Obama named Tom Wheeler, a CEO of the main telecom trade group, to chair the FCC. Please be the watchdog for New Yorkers' health and read the article. I can send it to you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and that concludes public session. Public session is now closed. We are going to move on to our electeds. Bear with me 1 second while I stop sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, seeing in our participants, we do have Gail here in the room.
No. Yeah, she's here.
Yes. Gail, can you unmute? Are you able to unmute?
Larissa, maybe we should
Yes.
come back to her.
Sure. Okay. We can move on. I do see we have Harvey Epstein I did see Harvey in the meeting. Harvey, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here. I
Hi,
see the
Harvey.
senator's here too. Brad, do you want to go first?
Oh,
This
sorry, I
is-
didn't see him in the movie. I apologize, Brad. How are you? Go ahead.
I'm well. I'm happy to go after Harvey. Thank you. But okay, I'll be
He's a
super.
hard act to follow.
Okay, I'll be super brief. Thank you, Harvey. That's really kind. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Alicia and Caroline. Wexelbaum from my team is here, and wanted to thank her personally for all the work she does. Just wanted you to know that I was proud to co-sponsor the COVID-19 Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act that the state legislature passed in December to protect COVID impacted New Yorkers from residential evictions and foreclosure. We've heard a lot about from tenant advocates that some courts in upstate New York are continuing to process eviction proceedings. So Senator Kavanaugh and I led a letter with 29 of our Senate colleagues to the chief administrative judge of the New York court system, alerting him to these reports and urging him to ensure that courts are complying with the new law. I'm chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee and Senator Kavanaugh's chair of the Housing Committee. So that's the capacity in which we did that. And last week, we're meeting virtually, as is Harvey, and Harvey and I are working on a lot of bills together, including one that we modeled off of a city bill that would end the commercial rent tax for a large part of lower Manhattan. And we hope to pass that because it's been unfair to small businesses that they pay an additional tax. We call it the Manhattan Mom and Pop Relief Tax, but I'll be keeping you updated on that along with Harvey. But in last week, we passed a number of bills to support small businesses, including protecting small businesses with COVID-19 related financial hardship from eviction and foreclosure, protecting restaurants by capping third-party delivery service fees, and prohibiting food delivery apps from predatory behavior where they listed restaurants without their permission or written agreement. And we also required the State Department of Labor to increase their efforts to provide information to employers about the shared work program, as well as freezing employers' unemployment insurance premiums. Today, I testified in my second item before the Public Service Commission at their hearing regarding the 2 power outages that were in Manhattan and Brooklyn in July 2019. These impacts ranged across our Senate district, hospitals, restaurants, theaters, local businesses. I'm supporting legislation that's carried by a colleague that would introduce a package of reforms, including legislation to create a panel to recommend nominees to the New York State Public Service Commission, which I think is not as vigorous and active as it could be, overlooking entities like Con Ed. So I'm hopeful that we can move that bill this year. The third item is I'm trying to ban facial recognition by the use of law enforcement here in the city of New York. Facial recognition is biased, it's ineffective, and it puts New Yorkers at risk of harassment from police and prosecutors. So a bill that I carry with one of our assembly members, Deborah Glick, would immediately halt the use of facial recognition and other biometric surveillance technology for law enforcement until we can have a study of its impacts and understand how it should be regulated. At the moment, it's regulated by no one, and you have apps like Clearview AI that you can have on your phone, and you can search Google images across the entire universe and match them with somebody that you might see walking down the street. It's very powerful and consequently very dangerous. And then finally, I have legislation coming to the floor next week that would repeal the so-called walking while trans ban. That's legislation that I've been carrying for a couple of years. That's important to transgender New Yorkers, immigrants, and LGBTQ youth, that has allowed law enforcement to essentially profile and arrest women of color because they look different. And so it has a disproportionate impact on transgender women of color, particularly in boroughs outside of Manhattan. It's been used to bully and to threaten and to blackmail a lot of our LGBTQ members. And so I'm hopeful to get that bill onto the floor of both the Senate and the Assembly. I know Harvey's a strong supporter, and I appreciate that. And then I stood up for hotel workers in Times Square at the Marriott Marquis, which has thrown out 850 of its employees without a contract during the holiday season with no hopes of return. And I joined a letter with a number of our elected colleagues to Mayor de Blasio and the Buildings Commissioner, Melanie LaRocca, requesting immediate action be taken to secure Charters because of a fire that occurred there in mid-December. So I want to thank Carlina Rivera and Harvey and the borough president. And my last item is we continue to fight alongside our colleagues for the Merchants House Museum. I testified with Assemblymember Glick to oppose the LPC application to build a hotel adjacent to that incredibly important historic site. Thank you so much. My report is online somewhere floating in the ether. Hope you get a chance to read it.
Okay, thank you very much, Brad. Okay, I'm going to go back to Gail. Gail, if you're ready.
I am. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I appreciate it. So a few things. First of all, I want to thank Madam Chair, Lucia Lewis Coleman, because you joined our vaccine task force today, along with many elected officials and about 300 people. And I don't know how to explain how frustrating it is. I think for the seniors to use the computer, the call centers are not coordinated. You get told no appointments. I know there are not enough sites, but the bottom line was a lot of folks had really good ideas, even how to work with current feeding programs and utilize them to go to the seniors, how to do home visits, how to do working with mutual aid, and the list goes on and on, how to use some of the vans that exist already to go directly to the communities. Now, as we were having the Zoom, of course, more vaccines were announced by, I guess, the feds and in the Daily News. We have to be ready. The next Zoom is February 3rd. People are welcome to join us. I am beyond frustrated. I don't know how to get one website. The state has one, the city has one, CDC has one, the hospitals have one, Presbyterian has one. And I don't know how anybody can follow all of this. So we are on it in terms of Manhattan, and we will certainly keep you up to date. But I want to thank you, Madam Chair, because you had some good ideas. Secondly, I know Tommy Loeb, to his credit, talked about the issues with SCAR, and I am trying really hard to deal with some of the value engineering reports and the other issues. I know that the council member is doing the same, so we have not forgotten. We're also trying to expand the CAG because it needs to be more diverse with everything from cyclists to youth, to Asian Americans and others to be part of the membership. So I look forward to working with folks who would like to be part of that in terms of those categories. I know that staff walked through Pier 42 the other day. That's obviously the first part of the project to move forward. And I hope that we'll keep talking about the briefings with EDC and DVC. Nothing's easy, but we're on it, Tommy Loeb, and I do think people are paying attention. We're very concerned about the East River Ecology Center and the compost issue, and certainly the 2 buildings that we would like to have remain and not have torn down. So I just want to let you know that. A little bit of good news. Council member Carlina Rivera are on with, and I think also some folks from other, the Archdiocese, Monsignor Sullivan of Catholic Charities, for whom I have great respect, really does want, and Carlina can talk to you about playing basketball at the Spelman Center. But the bottom line is there are ideas for its future and lots of interest in doing what the community would like. And to hear Catholic Charities say, oh, we're so glad that we got your letter because that gives us a push to do something with the building. I don't usually hear that. I usually hear no, no, no. So it was very positive, and I think we're all, collaboration is the name of the game. I also want to say how frustrated I am with NYCHA, as we all are. Hamilton Madison is, needless to say, an important community organization, and at Smith Houses, there's a whole challenge with the construction. NYCHA says that they monitor it and it's neat and clean and everything is fine. When I go and see it's not neat, it's not clean, everything is not fine. And Hamilton Madison even had to get an attorney to write to say how poorly the contractor works in terms of with the community and how they keep just playing their tools and their materials. And it's they lent the site, Hamilton Madison, to the contractor. At the same time, there's a huge flood and massive water problems in their childcare center area. So I don't know that there's money to fix up the center. So I'm going to be very aggressive about trying to find a private person who's doing business somewhere in the community to pay for the center and just get it fixed up. We need that center. I want to just say, I know you've all been working with Forsyth Street and the MTA issues, and we're trying to figure out why no speed bump and all the different issues that are around Forsyth Street that are certainly relevant to the construction and what's going on there. I think you know that we've been working on this helicopter task force. It's not a huge problem in District 3, but it certainly is Manhattan-wide. And I think I mentioned that literally people are going to New Jersey, getting on a helicopter, flying over Manhattan to take an Instagram picture. And it's frustrating because those of us who live here, we hear sometimes for an hour hovering over Manhattan. So we are trying to work with New Jersey. We have now a lot of support from Hoboken, Jersey City, elected officials who have the same complaint in the sense of the helicopters leaving to come over here. So we're going to be working together and certainly with the members of Congress, because without the FAA, and they've been participating, but without their input, there's not a lot we can do, to be honest with you. I do want to say condolences to Michael Steele. I didn't know him as well as many of you, but he was always very good to me whenever I went to Family Day and called him. And certainly we worked together to get food during the worst of the pandemic from Fresh Direct and others. So may he rest in peace. I also want to congratulate you with Board 6 on the Open Streets, Open Restaurants. A lot of issues came up that need to be addressed, and it was an excellent discussion. As you know, we have extended the deadline to February 22 for those who are members and those who want to apply to the community board. But to be honest with you, there's not a lot of applications coming in from current members, and you need to get them in, because if you don't, then my understanding is that you're going to have an interview. So for God's sake, get it in by February 1st. That's the old deadline. And then current members, no interview. In terms of capital funding, I think that's for the parks and the schools and so on. Some of the applications are due February 21 and some February 25th. It's all on our website. And I hope that you will make sure that you apply. We're also on our newsletter, which I hope everybody gets. It has, everything about business monies that are available, housing monies and how to apply, all the vaccine issues and so on. And I have to say, I'm not just tooting our own horn, but everybody seems to think it's an extraordinary newsletter. We're very unique, particularly a lot of art dollars available, which is really important to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Do we have any questions for Gail? I know, Olympia, you had a question for Brad, but let's see if we have any questions for Gail first before moving on. Okay, I see no hands for Gail. So if it's okay, I'd like to go back to Olympia, who has a question for Brad.
Thank you. I don't know if Brad, are you still with us?
Oh, he's got his camera off.
So it's okay. I can ask after Harvey anyway. I hope
Okay.
Harvey and Brad are working together.
Okay, and so sorry about missing your hand earlier. Okay, so we have Harvey Epstein up next then. Harvey, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just saw Carlin had a hand up for Gail, so I don't know.
Carlin, thank you. I'm missing these hands today, so
Yeah.
sorry, everyone. Carlin, go ahead if you have a question for Gail.
Yes, I was wondering if your COVID task force and vaccination task force has made provisions to help ESL seniors within the city, Manhattan, the city, make these appointments. In Chinatown area, we've had a lot of problem where seniors who do not have access to the internet or computer skills. I mean, I have friends here who can't navigate the system, and they're pretty frustrated. So I just hope your task force has provisions to help these ESL seniors. Thank you.
That was a main issue, Carlin. Those websites are impossible to navigate. You can't get an answer on the call center. The languages are an issue. One woman said she spent 25 hours all night long, all day long to get an appointment. So yeah, the answer to your question is yes. I mean, yes, 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 yes.
Thank you.
Is it me or should I?
Yeah. Can Harvey go?
Krista, you're muted.
No, he's not.
I just don't know if you guys want me to go or should I wait?
Larissa, can Harvey go? She's muted. Larissa's muted. That's why I can't hear her.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Yes, there are no other hands for Gail, so go ahead, Harvey. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. It's I'm up in Albany and it's a bit of a snowy night we have up here. We got about 6 inches so far. So I heard there's a little less snow down in the city. But so Brad mentioned a lot of the bills that we worked on. He didn't mention the commercial eviction moratorium, which in the assembly we passed today, which will extend the eviction moratorium for commercial tenants like we did for residential tenants, and commercial tenants will just have to submit a declaration and the moratorium will extend until May 1st. The expectation is that the governor will sign that bill as well. It really is the goal is to ensure that all our commercial tenants who are trying to stay alive, our small businesses, our restaurants, aren't evicted during this pandemic. And then longer term, we're talking about revenues for these small businesses. Brad and I mentioned our Save Our Storefronts campaign. We're trying to get, hopefully in the budget with federal dollars, $500 million as rent relief for commercial tenants, because right now we have $1.3 billion of federal dollars that are available for residential tenant relief, for rent relief. So we're gonna need a lot more. If people want to talk to Senator Gillibrand and Senator Schumer, they have a lot of power to get us more money in New York. We're going to need, if we already know on the residential side, we have the need is double 1.3 billion. And so we're going to need more, and we're going to need money for commercial tenants if we want to keep our businesses afloat. So on the bright side, it's been a nice week. We have, I feel like we have democracies reopened a little, and I feel a little more stability in our federal government, which has made it a lot easier on the state side to move forward with some of the agenda we want. The MTA had pushed for fare hikes, and I testified at the hearing, and I also went down to a press conference, and we were able to beat back the proposed hikes for the MTA. Clearly, we need revenue, but the question is, who do we need revenue from? And we have a package of bills that Brad and I and hundreds of other state legislators, and I know Gail and Carlina and other city officials are supportive of getting revenue from those who can afford it most. Corporations, millionaires, billionaires who have done well during this pandemic and aren't really giving. So the idea that we should tax riders instead of ultra millionaires and corporations and private equity companies is beyond something that makes sense to me. And so we're going to continue to push our revenue package. People saw the governor released his budget. He's proposing a lot of cuts across the board. The way he's making up some of those cuts is potentially with federal dollars, which means could be cuts in education, cuts in services. We've seen cuts SUNY and CUNY, and that's the opposite again what we need. In 1935, we built Brooklyn College because we knew during economic downturns we need to invest in communities, and so our job is to push back and say this is a time to invest. We raised revenue in 2008 and 2009 when we had the crash. We raised revenues almost every time when there was an economic problem, except for the 70s when we did cuts, and we saw what happened to New York in the 70s. We don't want to go back to that. So we had a town hall a couple of weeks ago. It was great. My youth council organized a town hall on local issues. Did a fabulous job. We, excited to have a new year of our youth council, and we have about 20 new applicants, so I'm excited to be doing that. The Board of Elections had a hearing on these new Excel voting machines, which were really problematic. They weren't available in multiple languages, and we were able to testify, and the Board of Elections rejected those problematic machines, and hopefully we'll do legislative changes to prevent that from happening in the future. I know we've talked a lot about COVID vaccine and really honor the work that Gail's doing in Manhattan to have the COVID task force and really managing what's going on across the borough, and that's the best way to do it, through being organized, and that's what we're supporting. She mentioned if people want to apply for a community board, that's something we want people to do. So an upcoming deadline for folks who have rent arrear problems, the application deadlines for February 1st for the existing first $100 million in rent assistance that we got together for last year. So if people who have rent arrears, there's $60 million left out of that $100 million. So we should make sure that people apply. And the other issues of upcoming events is we just have a quick bag giveaway later this week. So if anyone needs reusable bags, John Wilking would be at 40th and 2nd Avenue, I think. So if people want to get a free reusable bag and it's not too cold out, come on by. We're going to have a couple more down by us as it warms up a little. But since the plastic ban bag went into effect, we want to make sure people have as many reusable bags as possible. And the last thing I'll say, we did a final bill on the election reform. So people who are going to go out and start petitioning next month, you only have to do 30% of the overall number. It was really critical that we wanted to move away from petitioning, and we wanted to reduce the exposure, and that's what we did. And as I mentioned in the beginning, just if you have questions, again, John Blasco, who people know from our communities, who's my new chief of staff, he'll be periodically on this, but Aura has been our point person for CP3, but we're lucky to have John now as our new chief of staff, and I'm happy to take a question or two if you have any.
Okay, we do have Olympia. She has her hand up first. Go ahead, Olympia.
Hi, Harvey. I was going to ask it to Brad. It's a little bit like preaching the choir, but I also heard the reports that you just mentioned that are very concerning about the way our governor is going to try to use the federal funds by cutting budget. And I'm very concerned about what is happening in the schools right now. And especially what will happen in September. We don't even know whether we're going to be opening again because of the vaccination and how it's unfolding, actually not yet for the children. And the other two issues that I feel you at the state have bigger possibilities of helping the community, and we hear it constantly, is, there may be a lifeline for the artists right now because we have a different president, so there's going to be some unemployment and help. However, these people have no jobs, and they will not have jobs for another 3 to 5 years. So we've been screaming out about the need to create WPA style programs for these people in the performing arts, that we need them for our future, for our mental health, and they weren't even given any unemployment until very recently. And last but not least, at the state level, how long more are we gonna leave people living with the fear of homelessness? Why haven't we yet addressed the back rent? Like, we need to cancel the back rent. Otherwise, millions of New Yorkers at this point are living with such uncertainty. And how can we stand by? So the eviction moratorium is a band-aid, as we all know. How, like, we're gonna bleed out very soon. I know I'm preaching the choir, but I think we don't even say it enough in public forums. Maybe it's gonna reach the right ears through you guys. Thank you for all your service.
Sure. And Olympia, I'll just take them. So the WPA style program for, mentioned artists, but there are other people on it work. There's a bill that I'm a co-sponsor of, introduced by Woman Fahey from Albany, that does exactly that. And we're trying to push that forward. So that's something that, I 100% believe this is the time to government to invest in communities and invest in people. We have so much need that we can actually get it done. And we just need leadership that says this is not the time to cut. This is the time to invest. We can borrow money, we can bond money, and we can actually do that. We're authorizing the governor to bond up to $8 billion this year. Why don't we do that to invest in people? Because once people have jobs, they can pay their rent. Once people have opportunities, they can feel good about their lives. The idea that we're cutting back doesn't make sense. So that was one. Second point you made was schools. Yes, I mean, I was on a press conference earlier today about how we invest in schools and really funding our educational institutions. And what the governor has basically done is cut $1 billion out of the education budget. If people remember, we did that last year. I voted against the budget because the idea of cutting state dollars out didn't make sense. We should have raised revenue last year. Now we're a year later and we still have less revenue. The idea is we're going to cut another $1 billion out this year, but make up the $2 billion with federal dollars if we have it, which means we're going to be $2 billion in the hole in a year from now because we won't have state revenue and the federal revenue may not come back. So the idea the state must invest in our schools. We already have this lawsuit about campaign for fiscal equity. And so that lawsuit says we're underfunding our schools. And so we need to turn that around. And that's something only revenue will do. And we have the ability to do that. We can reinstitute the stock transfer tax. We can make sure that people who are private equity companies pay the same fees as their homeowners. We can tax millionaires. We can tax corporations back to the level that they used to be taxed on before the Trump tax cuts. There's so many things we can do in New York State if we want to. And so all this entire conversation is driven by that. Like if we don't have revenue, we can't do any of these things. So that's why we've spent so much time on pushing new sources of revenue. So I hope that answers all your questions. I did forget to mention one thing, and I think this is something that we've all seen a problem with around Brissetti houses around Avenue C and 3rd Street. And I know Carlena's been taking real leadership there. We've seen a problem there for a long time because of scaffolding. There was a shooting, in the last week, and the situation is just getting worse and worse and worse. And, working with our other colleagues in government, we need a better solution because it's a dangerous situation. It is not a healthy situation, and it's not healthy for the residents and the people in the community. So it's something that you're interested in, reach out to my office, Carlena's office, Brian's office, because, we're really focused on trying to fix up that corner for the people who are living in Brissetti and around the neighborhood.
Okay, Susan, you have your hand up.
Sure. So thank you, Harvey, for bringing up the Brissetti, and I actually wanted to mention that. So it's dealing with that corner, but it's also a much bigger issue because there had been many complaints besides the scaffolding and other issues around there with homeless on the NYCHA property, and our homeless outreach are not allowed to go on NYCHA property. And this was going on for months and it was not being resolved. When you called that meeting and we had the agencies, elected officials, and Community Board 3 was there, we came up with resolutions, such as a blanket waiver, an appointment made for joint outreach, or a lot of things done, but it should not have taken months to get it done. It should not have taken your office to call a meeting to get it done. So I think it's pointing to larger problems, particularly in trying to, offer services to people who are homeless. So I just wanted to point out that it's a much larger problem. There are also some great ideas that came up regarding the scaffolding, which is totally should not be happening without going into all the details. So I just wanted to thank you for the meeting, but also point out that this really is exposing a lot of problems.
Yeah, Susan, I totally agree. It's exposing a lot of problems, and it's not, these are not new problems, but I think we're all working together to try to resolve this, working with the local precincts, working with HRA, working with homeless diversion, working with NYCHA, and getting all these, like getting everyone in the room to have one conversation. And I think, maybe we can get it resolved. We may not be able to get it resolved forever, but at least we can get it resolved and stay focused, because this problem isn't going away unless we do something about it. And that's why it's really important to keep our coordinated efforts happening. Thank you for what the community board is doing to move it along too.
Okay, thank you. Jackie, you have your hand up?
Yes. Hi, Harvey. I support the moratorium because it keeps the people safe. But I'm just curious, when do you expect the federal rent relief would be distributed? If it is going through DHCR again, can you make sure the program will be designed in a way that is more streamlined and also with more openness? At least the applicants can check their application status, because what they are doing right now with the existing rent relief, the state rent relief program, is that it's just like all in a mess. Like even the first round, people still don't know if their application is approved or not. Thank you.
So Jackie, that's a really good point. If I have anything to do with it, this money will not go through HCR again. We will go through, some other agency, whether it's an HRA type agency or DFS or, HRA is much better at dealing with money. HCR has been terrible. And, nothing against the commissioner. They've just done a terrible job rolling out this program, mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. Our goal is not waiting till the budget. We're having another meeting next week to talk about this. We hopefully will have a plan along with the Senate in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we don't want this money waiting till the budget. We have 1.3 billion in hand. We should spend it. We've heard from the president that he may try to get another 30 billion in rent relief. That would give us another potentially 1.5. It'd be close to $3 billion in total. So we need this money to go out the door. We can't expect landlords and tenants to be waiting, both on the residential and the commercial side. We don't want commercial tenants to give up their spaces. We don't want commercial landlords to have to go in foreclosure. They're not getting the residential or commercial money. So we are trying to get this out as soon as possible. It really will depend on the governor. So now that the governor has proposed his budget, we can't pass bills that have fiscal impacts without his approval until the budget's resolved. But that doesn't mean we can't get it done before the April 1st deadline, and our goal is to do that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all and have a great night. And I really appreciate your service. And I sat on this board for 14 years. I know it's a tough job and these are late nights. And I really appreciate you all for what you do to serve our community.
Thanks, Harvey. Okay, we have Councilwoman Carolina Rivera.
Hello, good evening, everyone. So happy to be here. So happy to see all of you. I do miss in person, but I know we all have a little bit of pandemic fatigue, and I just want to thank you for continuing to meet and come together, albeit virtually, to make sure that we're taking care of our communities. Of course, congratulations to Chairwoman Alicia Lewis Coleman on her re-election. I'm thankful for your leadership, and I'm looking forward to working with you and all of the other chairs of the individual committees, just to make sure that we're collaborating and taking care of each other. So I want to echo some of the borough president's sentiments as well. She covered some of the topics that were brought up in public session, mostly how many people we've lost during this pandemic. She mentioned Mr. Steele. We lost someone recently at Henry Street Settlement. The tragedy continues to unfold, and I just want everyone to know that I'm trying my best in my own individual capacity as chair of the Committee on Hospitals to do what I can, and I'll give you a brief update on that in a second. I know that food and hunger was brought up. In the council last year, I, along with many of my council members, were able to secure $25 million in emergency food pantry money. And we have every intention of continuing to advocate for that same sort of relief, those same funds, if not more, this year in this budget as well. Some of that money, it went to a ton of organizations in Community Board 3 specifically, Vision Urbana, Education Alliance, Nazareth Housing, University Settlement, the food program at Walled Houses, the OLS Pantry, Father's Heart Ministries. So we did receive a good amount. Clearly, it's never enough. We've seen how the lines are growing, and you all know that this has always been an issue in our community for a long time. One issue that has come up as well in this meeting was that incident on East 3rd and Avenue C. We had a shooting. It was a homicide. Unfortunately, this is one of those intersections that when you're kind of bordered by low-income housing, I do feel like there's a tendency for it to be forgotten. And when, the issues and the challenges inside of public housing, those have existed for a very, very long time. Some of those issues, things that are taking place under the scaffolding on 2 corners of that block have really spilled out onto other places, other blocks, 4th Street, 3rd Street, C, D. Clearly, my office is trying its best. We were at the PSA 4 meeting last night. I should say I was there along with Isabel Chandler, who was the liaison to CB3, who you all know very, very well. And so what we've been trying to do is a couple things. Bringing harm reduction services to the people who are there on the block. Everything from social services to, again, anyone who wants counseling on substance abuse. A lot of the day programs are currently closed, so we're trying to bring that outreach to the individuals on the block. Of course, lighting is an issue, and that goes for anyone in any area. If there is a part of the district, a part of your block, your community that is dark, please let me know, and we will try to work with the Department of Transportation specifically to increase the lighting in that area. The other thing is the scaffolding. I think the scaffolding at Brissetti's been up, I don't know, maybe 5 years. The scaffolding at 32 Avenue C, which is on the southeast corner of 3rd and C, has probably been up since at least 2012. So clearly these are conditions that I wish we could more efficiently remove scaffolding. We do have legislation in the council that has kind of languished. And, I hope it doesn't take a tragedy like this to move policy, but I think it is clearly something that is an issue in many, many areas. My office has even advocated for funding for a project inside Gouverneur Hospital that specifically works with people in the sex trade, sex workers. So there is even some, reporting of possible prostitution on this intersection. So we are trying to figure out a way to reach every individual as holistically, as intersectionally, and globally as possible. And we're going to continue to do that. And of course, work with the NYPD for those who feel that some of these services and some of the things happening that they feel threatened. I will, let me just go over a little bit of the vaccine. Speaking of hospitals, over the past year, of course, and throughout my tenure, I've tried to use my position as chair of the Committee on Hospitals to examine issues of agency coordination between the Department of Health and, of course, health and hospitals during COVID-19, pushing even for the voluntary hospitals to take a greater role in caring for our least fortunate during the crisis. So last August, I released an 18-point plan to combat a second wave of COVID. Some of those recommendations have been partially implemented, like a more proactive patient loading system, better visitation policies, clarity for those going into birth. And so there's still a lot more we need to do. Passing real safe staffing laws, temporary halting the closure of hospital facilities through the certificate of need process, and then continuing to hold our city health leaders accountable. I'm having a hearing. I've had many hearings, some on testing and tracing, on vaccines. I'm having one next month specifically on language access and how we're working with community-based organizations to reach individuals to try to really address the distrust that people have in the vaccine process and vaccinations. So, you know, we took a similar approach for the census. Some of the organizations that assisted with that are in this Zoom right now. I don't know why we haven't embarked on a similar kind of model and really putting trust in our community-based organizations to get this information out there, but to really support them financially. So that's what I'll be pushing for, as well as recently, you know, we sent a number of additional possible locations for vaccination sites to the governor's office. So I'm trying to bring as many of those to our community as possible, while fully realizing we do have hospitals in our backyard. There are many communities citywide that do not have the same sort of access, but we should get what we deserve, and we should certainly utilize what is an amazing network of groups. So I guess I guess I want to stop there. You know why? Actually, let me say something on open streets, and because that was a big part of the public session. So let me address that right now. So one thing I've been very vocal on is open streets. I pushed for open streets because I thought New Yorkers needed adequate space to leave their cramped apartments. And especially in other neighborhoods in the city, there are many, many families and generations living in small spaces. So people could go out and, you know, go outside, kind of get some fresh air, and even just safely commute to their essential jobs while still being able to practice the social distancing, which is proven to be effective. So my open streets legislation, it's led to other things. Open restaurants, which I know was brought up, and I'll talk about that versus outdoor dining. Open schools and outdoor learning. Open retail, and now open culture, which I'm specifically excited about, right? Because we need to, in addition to serious relief and innovation from our city and state to help our arts and cultural organizations, like this is just one small thing we can do to try to help these amazing institutions, some small, some medium, some large, get back out there performing, because I truly believe that art therapy is going to be instrumental to the healing process because of the trauma that has been inflicted on us. Each of those organizations, open initiatives, open this, open that, those all have been championed by their own council members and advocacy organizations. When it comes to the open street model, my vision was always to open the streets to the public, see how we could utilize our spaces to promote healthy, more pedestrian-friendly experience for the future. Well, how is that different? Because I know some people came to voice their thoughts on open restaurants. The current Open Streets Plan, which through partnerships with community-based organizations, this brought safe and equitable access to outdoor spaces in New York and all the 5 boroughs, that's set to expire in September of this year. Then there is open restaurants. That's a separate legislative initiative led by Councilmember Antonio Reynoso, specifically introduced to provide our restaurants with an opportunity for economic survival. Some people say, why is there such a focus on restaurants and hospitality? It's one of the largest private employers in the city. It employs a lot of people, low income, immigrant, a very diverse range of folks. And so we felt it was important to try to do something in our humble capacity as council people. Councilmember Reynoso passed legislation last year to extend the outdoor dining program until next September. Until September, I did support that. I think COVID's going to be with us through the summer. I know we have several complaints regarding very bad operators. They're not adhering to the proper guidelines. They're not following the ventilation protocol, and they have outdoor structures that are a mess. If you see any of that, and I know that y'all have because we've received the complaints, you let me know, you let Reynoso know. We want to make sure that if outdoor restaurants ever does become permanent, which would require an entire separate legislative initiative, that we do this with everyone having a seat at the table. Ultimately, we expect to have many conversations with the Department of Transportation prior to any plan being finalized. We expect the community board will have an opportunity to comment, especially of what we learned at the town hall. And I have to thank CB3 and CB6 for co-sponsoring that town hall. And I wouldn't do this without all of you kind of by my side giving me input. I think I've proven that over the last 3 years. And speaking of CB3 and CB6, I know that there was a mention of the trees, the 1,000 trees. Yes, we have 1,000 trees planned for city streets. They do have to be kind of spread out in CB3 and CB6. I think about a month ago or a few weeks ago, we planted the 500th tree of 1,000. That's not counting the park. You know, this has to be a process that includes every community that's affected. And so, you know, this plan really was something that included not just CB3 and CB6, but Congress members, assembly members, state senators, community boards, advocacy groups, arts and culture organizations, little leagues. So, you know,
Carlina, I apologize. I hate to cut you off, but we're over 10 minutes right now.
Was I? I am so sorry. Let me just
no
say,
apologies.
Thank you so much. I'll go. No, I imagine there might be a couple questions.
Yeah, let's see if we have some questions. Thank you so much for your understanding. Okay, we have a question from Kay Webster.
Hi, Carlina. Thank you. And thank you for addressing some of the issues that were brought up in the public session. I'm a huge fan of Councilmember Reynoso for a bunch of reasons. And also appreciate your laser focus on the economic survival, which entails a lot of other people being employed during COVID. And so I really do appreciate you keep your eyes on the prize there. My sense, and I could be wrong, is that some of what I was reading in the chat or hearing from folks wasn't, well, let me just say what I do know that as a community organization, a lot of the policing of these venues winds up landing on the community, which is why the SLA committee was so often tight about giving licenses, et cetera, et cetera. So I just want us to always remember that that's who ends up policing this. And I remember that well as a Sarah Roosevelt Park coalition, that whenever somebody got a license, we were in charge of making sure they didn't break things. But I also know a lot of the small businesses in my neighborhood, not all restaurants and bars are run by women of color, and they're really struggling. And there are a lot of issues with the homeless folks who are struggling as well, probably even harsher. So I do think it would be great to have that, to have some kind of a reality check help on what's going on there. And I guess, the bad ventilation question is not a small deal. And if we can't get, resources to actually investigate that really gives us a mess with COVID. That increases COVID. So I know that's something you're keeping track of. So if you have any thoughts about that, I'd love to hear.
I think you kind of laid it all out. I mean, there are different needs. We want to make sure that everyone's struggling, right? I mean, not the rich. The rich keep getting richer, and I'm all for a tax on the ultra wealthy. I will tell you that, yeah, a lot of this is kind of learning as we go. There have certainly been mistakes. We're certainly learning. And, I try to do this, which is why I wanted to, and forgive me for taking so much time. I just really wanted to kind of explain like open streets and open restaurants and all the things that can and will go wrong. And, I'm just trying to be responsive and as proactive as possible. The ventilation is obviously like the biggest thing. I see some of these like weird structures that are essentially almost indoor dining outside. And so, if you see it, like call 311. I know people get tired of hearing that, but the data certainly helps me make my case when I'm talking to some of these agencies. So, let my office know. Isabel's in the chat. Please let us know if there's something that we can do, or if you're seeing something that is extremely problematic. And Susan Setzer has been great at letting us know as well.
Yep. Carlina, just anything on the compost yard, because there's a big blow up this week with finding out that Harlem, that their coastal resiliency a document that was heavily redacted. And anyway.
Yeah, well, the site that there's two sites we're looking at alternative, right? One is for the the programming, and that was secured in the Seward Park area. And then there's the other for the actual compost. We were told that 125th Street was likely going to be the alternative site, like under the RFK bridge. But right now, the negotiation with the TBTA, which is the Tri-Borough Tunnel Authority, hasn't been going well. And so they say that that site might not work. I mean, that's an unacceptable answer. The compost yard cannot move until we have exactly what was included in the commitments, which is that they have an alternative site that they've seen that they think is usable, that they can utilize to continue providing services to many, many New Yorkers. Like, full stop. That's where we're at. We'll be with Christine Datz Romero and the countless other composting advocates. We had a rally, a press conference, and a hearing on it. And, you know, the mayor's office knows exactly where we stand. And thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Michael Marino. Go ahead.
Thanks, Doisa. Hey, Carlina. Thanks for mentioning the tree planting. Actually, the 500th tree was planted at Corlears, so come visit it anytime.
I know.
I was wondering, speaking of the escrow project, if you can speak at all about your opinion or thoughts about this whole boondoggle with the value engineering survey report that doesn't seem to exist.
Yeah, I would just echo kind of what the borough president said, which is, you know, we want to make sure that people not only kind of understand what was used to make these decisions to put forward the preferred alternatives, which was the EIS, the final EIS, but that also that the community advisory group is powerful and is valuable. So, you know, Gail and I have been pretty lockstep on this process. And, you know, the answer to, I guess, that grand question of the engineering, the value engineering report, unquote, that was discussed and the answer provided at multiple meetings. This was a process that included many, many agencies. The final report is what the preferred alternative is. Those alternatives were all laid out in the EIS. The EIS is very detailed. It's the result of all the work that these agencies did. And based on the EIS and commitments, that is why we have to make sure that the CAG is powerful so we can hold everyone accountable. And I think, you know, many people on the CAG are committed. We have a history of working with Pratt. So I do want to make that work to the absolute benefit of our community. I hope that answers your question. I mean, if you look into the EIS, those are the details. That is what the preferred community plan. There was an engineering exercise. And I know that sometimes, you know, the biggest issue right now, plainly, is communication. The DDC, you know, call them nerds or wonks or whatever, they're very bad at communication. What we're trying to do is make sure that people have all the information they can. I want to say something like what the L train did, right? To get that information to people in a concise, you know, bite-sized way so they understand what's going on, so there's as much transparency as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Olympia.
Hi, Carlina.
Hello.
So thank you for being so helpful today. You took time, but you needed the time. So thank you for doing that. And you didn't talk about all the great things that you're doing. So I followed the hearing about the opportunity to purchase legislation. And I really want to thank you for having introduced that. And also I want to thank you for co-sponsoring the Commercial and Stabilization Bill. And so I wanted to ask about the opportunity to purchase legislation. I mean, what are the steps? What can we do? Because we know, as somebody said earlier, there are people that are thriving right now, and they're going to see our communities as potential for investment and predatory investment that it's going to lead to a new cycle of gentrification and so displacement. So, like, what is the plan? How can we invest in policies like the opportunity to purchase?
Well, thank you so much. We did have a hearing on this. I am still introducing and trying to pass legislation. My legislative record's been pretty good over the past 3 years, and I certainly don't want to stop now. So the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act is a bill that I've introduced that would require city-approved nonprofit organizations or community land trusts, for example, be given the first chance to buy residential buildings with 3 or more apartments when they are put up for sale. It was heard alongside another bill that would create a land bank that would warehouse properties and then prioritize selling them to community land trusts and nonprofits. Why I think this bill is important is for a number of reasons. One is, as we saw right after 2008, there was kind of this swoop in of like these predatory interests that gobbled up a bunch of land, essentially really hurting home ownership, specifically for, you know, working class families, communities of color. Why do I think it's important right now is because we're facing that same sort of situation. And I also think that, you know, we have a lot of organizations that are doing great work in the community. I just also think that it is sometimes difficult for them to have a very competitive edge against the larger kind of real estate interest and companies in this city. We have great organizations that build. Maybe you want to bring up AFI as just one example. I know there are many, a lot of them were there. Communal Life, who does great work with supportive housing. Again, this is really to bring in and give these organizations a bit more of an edge in a hyper competitive market. What do we need to pass that? Well, you know, there's some, you know, real estate interests that aren't happy with the bill, but that's not why I'm here. If you can, you know, continue to support and get other council members to sign on, you know, social media support. I'm hoping this is something that we can pass. I think it's really important considering the circumstances. I'm totally open to suggestions and recommendations on specific language. I've already received some feedback on kind of the window of time. And I always want to make, you know, legislation strong, inclusive, and I just want it to really have teeth. So we had a great hearing, and I would love any feedback from anyone on that bill. You could reach me through my office. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate that.
Okay, the next question is from Carlin Chan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You have a little bit of an echo.
If you have two devices going, you need to mute one of those devices so that you won't get the feedback.
All right, let me turn this volume on.
Hey, Carlin, if you can still type the question in the chat.
No, the chat was disabled. Okay, let me just go into another room. I have a question regarding the open restaurants. Okay, it seems that the DOT enforcement or the inspectors, they're getting mixed messages from about what they're supposed to enforce, it looks like. And so we have a situation in this area where, you know, there's a little red sign on top of the metered parking side of the street. And if a restaurant has open seating outside, then now one restaurant was asked to move it. Meanwhile, other restaurants with the same signage was not. So it seems to be a bit of confusion on the part of the DOT. There are inspectors in the field as to what to enforce and what not to enforce. Can we get a one policy thing on this?
This is a good question. This has to do with consistent policy, which I will agree that has been a little lacking during the pandemic on behalf of our city and state. As for DOT inspections, I guess you're saying using not only discretion, but applying standards differently to different establishments. Clearly, that's not fair. I would like to know if you can tell me where it is. You know, I don't have to say Carlin told me, but I can certainly follow up on the individual situation and see why. And then also be very direct with DOT that it seems that however the inspectors are going about this process is terribly inconsistent and can lead to like a lot worse things. Like, you know, honestly, like maybe people think that they're being targeted, and we certainly don't want any businesses to think they're being targeted disproportionately. So thanks for letting me know.
I'll email you the pictures.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thanks, you too.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Alistair, you're the next one with the question.
Hi, Carlina. It's very nice for you to be here. Thanks for coming. I just wanted to give you some feedback on the bill you just mentioned regarding nonprofits buying properties, which I think is a great idea. And I think a lot of people would love to do that to help the communities out. I think, and I can talk to you separately about this. I have some ideas on that would make the bill more likable to the industry. One of them, for example, would be if there's a transfer tax involved with a transaction. If selling to a nonprofit, it enabled the seller to avoid paying the transfer tax, that would be a huge incentive. And that would really point sellers and would give the nonprofits a leg up. So if there were some incentives put into your bill for landlords to sell to nonprofits, such as a waiver of the transfer tax or something like that, I think that would really incentivize people to go ahead and do a deal with a nonprofit as opposed to a private entity. And I can talk to you offline some more about it too, but that was my thought. I think it's a good idea, but I think the
It was just on email and I can't find it.
details can be ironed out a little bit better overall. But thanks. Thank you very much.
And thank you for the feedback. You know, right off the bat, it sounds like the transfer tax issue might be a state issue. So I want to be clear. I want to be, thoughtful. So I will definitely, if you can actually contact me, please, with this specifically, I just took some quick notes down so I can look into it. And if it does require some sort of coordination with our state electeds, I've gotten pretty positive feedback from our representation that overlaps just geographically. So we can try to work that out. So I really do appreciate your perspective on the issue.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Carlina.
Okay, thank you so much, Carlina, for your time and all your information. We appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks to everyone.
Sure. Okay, we're going to move on to the rest of the elected reports. Is there anyone here from Mayor de Blasio's office? Okay, Public Advocate Jumani Williams' office. Scott Springer's office. I believe Luke was here.
Yes, hi everybody. Want to start by wishing everyone a happy new year and a few updates from my office. The first is that yesterday the controller was very excited to announce that the city's pension funds are going to be divesting $4 billion from the fossil fuel industry. This is, when it was announced in 2018, the biggest divestment from the fossil fuel industry in the world. And since that original commitment, a lot of cities from across the globe have joined that effort. So the controller is very excited to keep pushing the ball forward and finally fulfill that commitment to start the divestment process, and also that New York City remains a global leader in this regard. The second update from my office is around the controller's Fair Shot NYC vaccine plan. We know all the issues there's been thus far the past few weeks in terms of getting it out. The controller is really focused on making sure that the vaccine is accessible and also distribution is equitable across the city. So some of the recommendations that he's put forward, which we really would like the city to take up on, are one is to release all the demographic data in real time, so we know by race, age, geographic, exactly who and where the vaccine is going, and where we need to have more attention and resources paid to make sure it's done in an equitable way. Number two, make sure that businesses have mandatory or giving their employees time off, so that someone doesn't have to choose between a paycheck and actually getting the vaccine, and also really ramp up public outreach and education efforts, especially with language access in mind, to make sure that across the city, everyone knows the information they need to safely get the vaccine. And the last thing I will share about is our PPP plan. So the Paycheck Protection program opened a few weeks ago for the second time, and the controller announced this plan with a press conference actually in Chinatown. The first round of funding for PPP, only 12% of eligible New York City businesses receive funds. We think those numbers are paltry compared to where they should be, and the controller put together a plan to dramatically expand outreach and really go from the city being reactive to being proactive and telling business owners who are eligible, here's what you need to do, Here's where you can go. Here are the financial institutions who have been good about giving these loans to small community-based businesses, and really making sure the city gets off the sidelines and is much more proactive in their efforts in helping businesses get this federal money, which they're eligible for. So I will leave it there and drop my email and some of our plans in the chat, and happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, I don't see any questions. Okay, thanks, Luke. Next, we have Congressmember Nydia Velasquez. Is there a representative from her office?
Hi, I'm the Congresswoman's Lower East Side and Chinatown liaison, Lin Xia. First of all, on behalf of Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, I'm here to pass on her condolence for the passing of Michael Steele, and it's a great loss for our community, and another reminder of the toll that this pandemic has taken on us. And she would like to thank community boards, the CB3 the CB3 community on your effort and the discussion to the open street plan, and your effort to help the small business, particularly the restaurants, to survive this economic downturn. She herself, at the end of last year, a big part of Chinatown business was excluded from the Department of Small Business loan program targeting low to mid-income neighborhood, because that part, Chinatown west of Bowery, shared the same zip code with Soho and Tribeca. And as a result, that part of Chinatown did not count as low-income neighborhood, even though it is, those blocks are. So Congresswoman wrote a letter to Small Business Commissioner asking him to find alternate funding source for the small business in Chinatown, and asking the city to take consideration of using zip code instead of zip code, using census blocks as determining factor to decide eligibility for such programs in the future. After the new year, the Department of Small Business did act and find alternative funding source program for the small, for the low income business that were left out of the program previously, and also PPP program opened up. And it's very important that our business had access to that, to the PPP program, because unlike the low interest, no interest-free loan that the city offers, some of the PPP money loan does not need to be paid back if the business meets certain eligibility. And 2 weeks ago, our office did a webinar doing outreach and answering questions, information on the PPP program. And then we're going to go on to do more in February to get more business, also nonprofit and co-op boards, because they are also eligible for PPP, to get them informed about these programs so more people could apply. The Congresswoman, and the COVID vaccine is very important because in addition to health and safety, in terms of the small business, it's essential that the business workers are protected for these business to recover. And a lot of these workers for the small business, they are in the priority list, the eligibility right now, but due to the vaccine confusion, we understand that some of them don't know how to are having difficulty making appointment. And on February 4th, we are going to have a vaccine webinar to bring more information and clarification on the vaccine. And we will be when the Zoom link is out, my office will be doing email blasts to send out the webinar information. And then it will also be available on Twitter and the Congresswoman's website. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, Kay Webster, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I don't have so much a question as just wanting to say that I think we're all glad that Congresswoman Velazquez and Maloney and Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand were all unharmed in the January 6th riot and devastation. So that's all I wanted to say to pass.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, I'm going to move on to Congressmember Carolyn Maloney's office. Is anyone here from her office?
Yes, this is Victor from Congresswoman Maloney's office.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney joined 112 Democratic lawmakers in sending a letter to President Joe Biden to express their commitment to addressing immigration reforms. Quote, "The time to act on immigration reform is now. Our immigration system was broken before President Trump took office, but his administration advanced changes that eroded what was left of our system. These changes resulted in family separations, inhuman detention conditions that took the lives of migrant children, and discrimination against immigrants based on race, nationality, income. In addition, the Trump administration's push to end protections for dreamers and cut legal immigration were widely opposed by the American people. Our immigration laws must be updated and reformed to erase the stain left on our country by the Trump administration," said Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. These and other issues can be found in the Congresswoman's government website. Good evening.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping it so brief. Much appreciated. Next, Assembly Member Yulene New. Do we have a representative from her office?
Hi, yes, this is Shivani from Assemblymember News Office. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome. I will also keep it very brief tonight. I just wanted to say last week, our office hosted a NYCHA Blueprint and Affordable Housing Town Hall. It was a really great opportunity for members of the community to speak directly with representatives from NYCHA, as well as have really important conversations about establishing permanent and deeply affordable housing in our city. And we, it's all on YouTube. So when I send over the board report, there'll be a link in case you're interested in watching. And we definitely hope to facilitate this sort of conversation again in the future. Additionally, earlier this month, she hosted Oath Commissioner's Community Webcam webinar, which kind of tells businesses how to deal if they've gotten an oath summons or dealing with oath proceedings. That will also be linked in case you want. It's a good resource in case you're interested. And then finally, we are preparing for our annual legislative and budgetary town hall. So keep your eye out for that. But otherwise, those are my only updates for this month.
Okay, great. It's very brief. Thank you. Assembly Member Deborah Glick. I did see a representative from her office here.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, good evening. Charlie Anderson from Assemblymember Glick's office. Hi. Just very quickly, two things this evening. The first is that starting this January 1st, there are new paid sick leave requirements that have taken effect in the state. Back in the 2020 session last year, the governor was able to sign into effect some new paid sick leave requirements that go to benefit practically every employee in the state of New York. Just a very quick rundown: if an employer has 100 or more employees, they are now required to provide up to 56 hours of paid sick leave. Between 5 and 99 employees, they have to provide up to 40 hours of paid sick leave per calendar year. And employers with 4 or fewer employees must provide up to 40 hours of unpaid sick leave. So smaller employers, really small employers, don't have the same requirements, but there are sick leave requirements that would go on to affect every employee. This will come out as part of our update in our e-blast that we'll send out in a few days. So there is information there, and also on the governor's website if anyone would like further information about those requirements. The second thing is has already been mentioned by Senator Hoylman and Assemblymember Epstein, so I won't go on again about the rent relief extension that will close on February 1st. If anyone who is on this call, this Zoom this evening lives within our district, we have a much smaller portion of CB3 than both of them. But if anyone here is from there that is wanting to apply for that, needs help, you can always reach out to our office at 212-674-5153, and someone will get in touch. So that is it for me tonight, unless there's a question. Sounds good.
Okay, I don't see any questions.
All right, well, thank you and have a good evening.
Great, thank you. Next we have, let's see, State Senator Brian Kavanaugh's office.
Hello, everyone. The good thing about going later is that all my points are taken up. And in the interest of bedtime, I will be brief. In relation to the CEFPA, the COVID-19 Emergency Eviction and Foreclosure Prevention Act, I wanted to drop in the declarations of hardship. I'll do that in the chat. Also, I will be sending over the link for the ERRA that is closing on Monday, as we've spoken about. I just wanted to make note that today we sent out in collaboration with Assemblymember Dinowitz, Assembly Members Godfrey and Simberwitz, and State Senator Rivera, we're urging the Department of Health to halt the untimely eviction of seniors in nursing homes. They actually don't fall under the normal proceedings and go through the Department of Health. But we believe that this particular population of individuals obviously captures the intent of the legislation, and in the interest of public health and safety, we're asking all of those proceedings to be stayed in alignment with CEFPA. As well, I wanted to mention that we were on the conversation today related to and it was a great conversation and a great way to start addressing the issues that have been going on. And then election reforms as well was discussed. So if anyone has any other issues related to our particular district, please send them over cabrera.nysenate.gov, and I will get my colleague to bed now, unless there are any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, nope, seeing none. Thank you. Last but not least, Councilmember Margaret Chin's office. Okay, we don't have a representative from Councilmember Chin's office. So that completes elected officials reports. We'll be moving on to roll call and approval of minutes for November of 2020. Wow, it seems so long ago. Okay, who's doing roll call this evening?
I am Shirley.
Shirley, thanks so much. Go ahead.
Yep. David Adams.
David?
David?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Okay, great.
Okay, yes, approved.
Okay. Yaron Altman.
Yes.
Jesse Beck.
Yes.
Dominic Berg.
Yes.
Lee Berman.
Yes.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu.
Yes.
David Crean.
Yes.
Felicia Cruikshank. Eric Diaz.
Yes.
Alistair Economakis. Alistair.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, I thought you were here. Shirley Fennessy, yes. Ryan Gilliam.
Yes.
Deborah Glass.
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
Herman Hewitt.
Yes.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
Linda Jones.
Yes.
Valentina Jones,
Yes.
Tatiana Jordio,
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan,
Yes.
Olympia Kazi,
Yes.
Joseph Kearns. Joseph Kearns. Michelle Cooper Smith.
Yes.
Mei Lee,
Yes.
Wendy Lee,
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman,
Yes.
David Louie,
Yes.
Ellen Liu,
Yes.
Michael Marino,
Yes.
Alexandra Militano,
Yes.
Michael Perlis,
Yes.
Tariq Ramos. Tariq, I know I saw you earlier.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. Paul Rangel,
Yes.
Damaris Reyes,
Yes.
Richard Ropiak,
Yes.
Thomas Rosa,
Yes.
Robin Chattal, sorry. Heidi Schmidt,
Yes.
Larissa Shainberg,
Yes.
Anisha Stephen,
Yes.
Sandra Struther,
Yes.
Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez,
Yes.
Rodney Washington. Rodney. Jackie Wong,
Yes.
Ricky Wong.
Yes.
Okay, that's everybody.
And sorry, Shirley, Joe is in the attendee list. If someone can move him over, Joe Kearns, to the panelist so he could speak.
You didn't call my name,
Oh,
Kate.
it wasn't on my list.
I'll work on
I'm
it.
sorry. That's weird. Where are you, Kay?
Okay, I'm going to move Joe over. Okay, Joe, you're on the
I
panelist list.
say yes. So
Yeah, no, I want you to say yes. Okay, I'll put you in. I don't know why you're not on my list.
And this is Joe saying yes.
She is number 46 on the list.
Oh, you're right. I just missed her.
It says Kathleen.
I see. Right. Okay, sorry. Kathleen, sorry. I missed you.
I will move.
You're a yes. And then, I'm sorry, who did we just move over?
We moved Joe over.
Joe Kearns.
Joe. How do you spell your last name, Joe?
Kerns.
Kearns. Okay, great. Okay, did I miss anybody that's here that didn't say yes? Oh, there you are, Joe. Okay, got it. All right, I think I got everybody.
Okay, great. So that completes roll call. We're going to move on to board reports. First, board chair's report. Alicia.
Thank you, Larissa, and thank you all the elected officials that are in attendance or were in attendance tonight. Thank you to our full board members and our public members and members of the public, our CB3 residents. I just want to first thank everyone for your well wishes for my family in our time of mourning as the untimely loss of my brother. And I greatly appreciated all of your expressions of gratitude. Thank you so much. I just want to address, I guess, the elephant in the room, and many people addressed it tonight, concerns. So to address the SLA issue getting a lot of press, I'd like to make the following clarifications, okay? First, I'd like to extend deep appreciation for Alex for all the work that she's done for 19 years of service. I would never not be grateful for the work that she has done. Second, I'd like to clarify what I meant by in another direction. It was just a way of going into details. But the reason it was the time, it's just was time to get newer membership of the community board engaged and knowledgeable. There needs to be turns. I mean, we all have to take a turn at the seat at the table. Many people don't get an opportunity if there is a long-term leadership. So this is an occurring, this is occurring in many of the committees. It's not just with SLA, it was other committees as well. If you look at the history, you'll see that there are different leaderships that are going to come up. Okay, last, I would like to clarify the issues of policy. The city charter requires that the community board positions, including policy, be directed by vote at a public meeting. So all committees always adhere to, okay, to this in all committees, and will continue to adhere to this. There are new policy changes being contemplated. There are no policy changes. I'm sorry, there are no policy changes being contemplated. So if there are any policies that are going to be made, everyone will have their opportunity to sit at the seat and listen to them, and we all get a chance to share in that, okay? Please note that everybody is invited to take place in that. And if any committee contemplates policy changes, this will be taken up at that particular committee. Okay, it won't be done behind closed doors or anything of that sort. I think that covers all the questions that have been brought up that needed clarification. Some things are internal matters, and I cannot engage in that kind of discussion about that at this moment. The position of secretary is vacant on our executive at the moment, and as per bylaws, there will be an election next month at the February full board. So if you are interested in nominating yourself or someone, please let Larissa know by February 10th. That gives us enough time to prepare our sheet for that, for the vote sheet. I want to say I'm glad that I had an opportunity to attend today's vaccine task force with our President Gail Brewer and other elected officials. And I would like to know if anyone has any questions or any thoughts that they'd like for me to bring up at the next task force meeting, which is scheduled for February. If you'd like to, please send me an email at the cb3chair@gmail.com. Any particular concern, and I will address it when we meet with the task force. And lastly, we are having a Lunar New Year Zoom. So save the date for proposed for February 21st, which is a Sunday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. We had a really great Zoom for Christmas. It was really a fun time, all had by all. We got to see some talent on our board. And if you're interested in participating in that, you're going to get an invitation. We are extending invitations to fellow full board members, public members, and elected officials, and members of the office of the community board as well. Thank you so much. And that concludes my report for the night. Susan.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. I want to reference the town hall held last month in regard to constituent complaints. I hope people can tell from that town hall why it has been so extremely difficult to try and address complaints, even though some of them have been really egregious. There's just no infrastructure really for the city to resolve the issues. Most of the complaints have been in the East Village area, and I have pretty much at least 99% been working with Carlina's office on them, so that, you know, we're all on the same emails and not duplicating each other's efforts, but trying to strengthen each other's efforts. It's very frustrating. I certainly don't feel like I'm doing my job properly, and I don't feel like I'm able to. So it's extremely frustrating. Regarding the vaccines, I think I've mentioned before, I'm not sure if the full board, that there is a test and trace meeting every other week. Health and Hospitals has with the community boards. It's every other Wednesday. May and I have been attending, and we both because Trevor brought up the senior issues and the need for vaccinations in some of the senior buildings. We are bringing that up tomorrow at the meeting. I know nothing's going to happen immediately because there's no vaccine, but there certainly needs to be plans for this for when it is possible. And I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions.
Susan, we have a question from Olympia.
Sure.
Hi, Susan. My question was actually for Elisa. They skipped the questions before. So if somebody has a question for Susan, they can go first.
Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Elisa, because I appreciate that you tried to address the elephant in the room and for speaking up about, you know, how important it is to value the service of our fellow members and recognizing the work of Alex. I want to make sure that we do the same also for Caroline. Unfortunately, because of what happened to my family, I couldn't be here at the last meeting. And Caroline has worked tirelessly, you know, in our community for parks, for culture, for charities. And, you know, having members like her quitting is always something that should make us think. And so I wanted to plead with you and say that, you know, maybe we should have 1 or 2 meetings that are one maybe among us members to discuss how we feel about the ways we're running certain things, because we never have really an opportunity to talk about that. And we're constantly actually being accosted by non-community board members telling us things that are, you know, they have something to say. And then maybe even consider having a venue where these public members are given, you know, not only 4 people on one issue, because we're here to serve the greater community. And if the greater community doesn't trust us, then we're failing. And so I think we should do something. We should organize something. We're going to follow your leadership on that.
Okay, we have a question. Oh, sorry, if you want to respond, and I apologize for the questions being, the hands not being acknowledged. My internet is a little shaky tonight, so you're popping up late. My apologies.
Thank you, Olympia, for your concerns. And I will definitely further look into that and see how we can make something happen, okay? We'll look into it. Thank you.
Next question is from Kay Webster.
My question was also for you, Alicia. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to also echo Olympia and thank you for addressing the elephant in the room. I think that after 4 years of an administration that was divisive and pitted people against each other and was a very much harder than I think any of us can really notice, that there's a lot of feeling running. And but I also, you know, so anything that just says this is what's happening and addresses what's happening is reassuring, I think, for everybody, or at least for me. And I also want to echo the appreciation of Carolyn, who was on the Parks Committee and knows more about underground streams than I ever will or could. And it's just like everyone on this board has a body of knowledge that makes us who we are and makes us better. I do want to say that it was odd to me, and I don't know where, you know, if this is a real thing, but when the public session goes on, I certainly don't mind being addressed by my name. Addressing by name is not in and of itself an attack, and I think it separates us in a weird way and formalizes something. I'm a strong believer in no attacks, you know, that you never get to do that. It's never productive. But somebody calling my name or saying anybody here's name, I don't quite get why that is would be a thing. So maybe someone could explain that, or we can talk about it at some point.
Thank you, Kay. And yes, I definitely do appreciate all of Carolyn's work as well. I would not go on without saying how much everybody's appreciated on community board. This is service that, you know, for a lot of times we're unthanked in many ways, right? So I do appreciate everybody's work, and especially Alex and Carolyn. Thank you so much. Next Dominic's hand is up.
Hi. So one thing I definitely appreciate what Kay and Olympia have said as well. But one thing I believe, in listening to the public session, and I know there's a lot of newer members as well. But Alicia, is it's part of her responsibilities as chair to determine when a committee chair is going to be replaced. And oftentimes that happens after an election at the start of a term. So, they're really, what she did was, was sort of in line with traditionally when that occurs. In our bylaws, it's clear that a chair is able to do that at any point in time. It just so happens that, generally after elections, historically, that's when changes in leadership have been made. Alicia you didn't address this, but, and I think Kay has, but I have been really disturbed by a lot of the rhetoric that I've heard over the last few weeks, and the parallels to that rhetoric that we're hearing from Washington and around the country, even in our own community, is really disturbing. There has been gaslighting of, what your intents were, and people referring to backroom deals, and really, casting bad light on members that have nothing to do with anything, all because you used a couple of words that were not corroborated, that were not explained, and people ran with that. And I think it really, this board has seen a lot of attacks on the female chairs. As a former male chair of this board, I have seen repeatedly, like Gigi and Alicia have been put through the ringer, whereas the male chairs have not been put through the ringer like they have. And I think that we need to acknowledge that there is probably some inherent sexism that is also taking place in the board, and that we really need to address that. And we need to, respect our fellow members. And, and what has been going on over the last few weeks, I find to be just really disappointing. And that there needs to be a level of collegiality among the board that has been lacking for a while. So, I just want to say, because I think, Alicia, you probably shouldn't need to defend yourself, but I want people to be aware that, in your role, you have absolutely every right to replace chairs, when you see fit. And you were elected by a wide margin, re-elected by a wide margin by the board to carry out your duties. That's it.
Thank you, Dominic. Next we have Robin, and then Michael Marino.
Hi, thanks, Alicia. Can you hear me? Because you can hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
hear.
Yeah, I thanks Dominic for saying what you said, and also to Kay and Olympia. I just wanted it would be helpful as a board member to know, given that if those are the bylaws and the rules, that the chair has the right to make those changes. That's great. It would be helpful to know if there are changes happening and that there might be openings available so other board members could have an opportunity to advocate for themselves if they want to or interested in taking on any of those openings, because I think that doesn't really happen so often, from what I can get from my personal experience.
Thank you, Robin. Michael?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just need to call out some hypocrisy. Dominic, I really want to refer you to your November 23rd, 2020 email that you sent out defaming me and making up lies about me during the election. So before you try to lecture the rest of the community board about how we're acting, please look at yourself in the mirror. Thank you. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Next, are there any other hands at the moment? Okay, one more hand. David Crane, please.
Okay. Yeah, so I just want to say a few words in support of Alicia and Michelle. I believe it is important to rotate leadership within CV3. Not all of you may be aware that over the past 20 or so years, I was both appointed and replaced as chair of the Transportation Committee 3 times. I do believe those changes all resulted in good outcomes for the board and for the community. Therefore, I want everyone to know that I support Alicia's decisions to rotate leadership positions, which is her prerogative as board chair. And I thank Alex for being so effective and successful as chair for the past 19 years. And I want other board members and the public to join me in supporting the new chair of the committee for the next few years. That's all. Thank you.
Damaris, I saw your hand physically.
Thank you. I too want to echo what David Crane just said. I think it is important for us to rotate chairs. I think that the way this process happened is really no different than what we've seen, in the past in terms of new chairs, as Dominic stated, or re-elected chairs reconsidering the leadership of the committees on the board. I am deeply saddened, though, by the way that we are reacting and speaking to each other and calling each other out. I think that does not bring us together or unify us in any way. And I feel like if folks have real concerns with the way that people may be supporting these decisions or expressing themselves, that, before we go shouting each other out, why don't we try talking to each other on the side and seeing if we can work things out with each other? This is not the kind of space I want to be a part of. And I respect every single one of you for all your different views and all your different perspectives. So I just wanted to echo those concerns and those sentiments. And I also think that you've done a great job, Alex. I also agree that it was Alicia's decision to be able to make those changes. And I hope that moving forward, what we will do, instead of attacking each other, is support each other to, in these new leadership positions. There's a lot that can be learned from the folks who were chairs for the new chairs that are taking over these positions. So I hope that you avail yourselves, as the chairs that are exiting and any future chairs that may exit, to support new leadership, because in the end, at some point, we all have to pass the torch. Thank you.
Thank you, Damaris. Okay, Valentina, and then Alex.
Yeah, I think, oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. All I was going to say is one of the things I had noticed some time ago about Community Board 6 was that they rotate their chair, I think, as a health committee, because I just happened to go to some of their meetings because they have quite a few hospitals in their district. So I've been to quite a few of their meetings. And but I think it's set up. There's a protocol. There's not a suddenly, excuse me, but I'm changing folks or whatever. There's a protocol. So I kind of think that one of the things to look at is you might want to look at Community Board 6 and look at how they have a protocol set up. So there's no, I don't think there's an issue, because I think there's a protocol set up for how they transition. So that's my one suggestion, is that you come up with a protocol so that there's no discussion about was it or was it not fair. It was the person is in for this amount of time and then they step down and there's a new chair. So there's no discussion and it's a protocol. And I think that things work better when there are protocols set up, because then no one can say that something was unfair or something was a, under the table deal or none of this. It was protocol. This is how we do things. And so I think that would be a good thing going forward, so that we don't have this whole whatever is going on, because in the midst of COVID, I just personally, I just really don't have time for this. Okay. Retired registered nurse, I don't have time for this. I just think you need to have a protocol.
Thank you, Val. Good point. Alex, and then Olympia.
I think in trying to express, there are many things I want to express, but I'm just going to say this one thing. And that is that had I been asked, I would have trained Michelle to be the next chair, which is what I was doing with Clint and had been doing for a number of years. The issue was not whether or not Alicia had the right to replace me. I don't think that there is any issue with that. Certainly she had that right. It was the way that she did it, which was effectively dismantling the work that I have done and the processes I've created on this committee. And you can see that in the concerns of the residents, because what they are saying is that they already see a change in how the information is going to be communicated to the SLA. And that's really what my only concern here is. I have worked only to try to ensure that the community voice is heard in this, and I feel like it's being lost in this process. And I agree with Damaris. I don't really want to work with people whose positions and feelings and seem to be so ugly and not straightforward. And I recognize that many people have submitted letters, both in support of me and expressing, I think Dominic called it gaslighting. I thought his own letter was somewhat gaslighting, but I have heard about other letters and seen other letters voicing positions and making conclusions about some concern that I had with just how the process would be affected in all this. And that has really been my only concern here. So, you know, if there's a way to fix this, certainly, you know, I welcome any suggestion about how that's going to happen, but already what I see happening here, and I have had the opportunity of being a long-term chair, is that we're going back to a place already from like the 2005. So we're producing things already and chairing the meetings already like we did in 2005. There's going to be a long learning curve here. We could have avoided this with me just training Michelle had Alicia just told me that that was her intent, but she didn't. So that is my only criticism.
Thank you, Alex. Olympia?
Thank you. And thank you all guys for speaking. So I just wanted to clarify that when I ask you to have these meetings, it's not about who is the chair, how do we appoint the chairs, etc. That's part of the many things. But we know as community board, I'm sure I'm not the only person that has been contacted, that right now we are a little bit in a communications crisis. People don't seem to trust us. And I feel that there is really, you know, something that we need to do as a community. And about the sexism thing, Dominic, as someone who has been told whether I was asked from a chair of a committee whether my kids call my nanny mommy, and someone who's repeatedly has been seeing her chair rolling her eyes on her. And even though I have a university degree on the subject, I'm, you know, torn down. I agree with you. There is definitely sexism in this community board. But I think this is not the venue to discuss it. That's why I'm asking our chair to create a venue where we can discuss that.
Okay, Kay, last comment, and then we're going to move on for sake of time. It's 9 o'clock.
If somebody else hasn't spoken yet, I would cede it for the last.
Last hand, Kay.
Okay. Echo and thank you, Alex, because I think that the conflating the not wanting a new chair and the way we ended the other chair isn't what was going on here. I do agree that there's a lot of sexism, and we'll add racism to that. When Gigi was the chair, I'm sure Alicia has experienced that. You know, some of us stood in between people who were from the public who were actually physically threatening Gigi, including Alicia. I think what's being asked for here is, it sounds like from the community, is Not that Alicia didn't have the right to, you absolutely did. I would support that right. I agree. I like retiring from every job I have and bringing on new leadership, but I do think you have a learning curve. And I think that's just being honest and real. I think it's not just us, but there has been 4 years of an incredibly divisive leader. And we are all still experiencing that, including being in the midst of COVID. And I frankly think this discussion is at least a start to try to clear some of that air. It's never going to be perfect. I think we're a community board of different people, and it's important that we disagree and that we have venues to disagree and that we bring our specific viewpoints to this. And I don't find that hard. Just like I really don't want us to have to not have the public say our names when they're discussing us. I don't want to say my name and then a curse word, although I'm even fine with that. But there's something that I don't want to see us get tight in this way. So, and Alicia, I nominated Alicia for chair when in the very beginning. So I believe in her as a leader, and I will say that.
Thank you, Kay. Damaris, you're the last hand, and then we really have to move on for the sake of time. I'm sorry.
You know what? Let's move on. There's nothing that I'm going to say that all of you haven't heard before. So it's 9 o'clock. I'm just going to leave it there and thank everybody for their comments.
Thank you, Damaris. Thank you, everyone, for your comments tonight. Okay, now we're going to move on in our agenda. Okay, next item is the district manager's report.
No, we did.
Oh, we did that already.
In the committees.
Okay, and let's go into the committee reports. Landmarks.
Yes, our Landmarks had one certificate of appropriateness application. It was for 321 East 6th Street, and a rather elegant design for a small rooftop addition and many nice restorations to the rest of the building. We approved it. If you have any question about the details, it's pretty much in the resolution.
No hands. Thank you, Linda. Land use, you guys. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, so land use did not meet in January, so we don't have results, but CB3 is planning 2 housing resources with HPD and a few CBOs, one for tenants, the other one for small properties owners. The tenants fair will be on March 4, and the owners fair will be on February 25th. Once the flyers are available and ready, we will put them on CB3 social media. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Jackie? Okay, thank you. Being none, we're gonna move on. Transportation. Paul, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to go over a couple of things. I know a lot of people were talking about the town hall earlier during public session. So just a quick thing on the February agenda, we do have it as an agenda item, the open restaurants program will be on the agenda as a result of what we heard at the town hall. I do agree. I could have probably handled that a little bit better or guided it in a better direction. But hopefully we got what we needed out of it. I also want to thank Susan and the office for setting it all up, getting all the elected officials and all the officials from the different city agencies onto that call, getting the questions onto the website, all that stuff, sending it to me and getting everything prepared. Thank you so much, Susan, for that, and for the entire office for putting that together for me, and for the committee. We had our normal committee meeting last week. On Wednesday, we have one reso to talk about, and it was the Gateways Chinatown project. They had DOT had come to us in July of 2019 initially. We did not write a reso at that point, but DOT took the recommendations from the community in July of 2019 and came back with a new plan last week. We eventually approved that plan, and there were some other concerns that came up during the committee meeting about some of these safety issues, and we've asked around that plan, and we want DOT to come back as well with how they plan on resolving those safety issues. But we did eventually vote to support it. We did talk about some of the transportation issues that we had in our December meeting, and we're going to start breaking those things down piece by piece beginning in February as well. I see that there is one hand up.
Yes, Carlin has his hand up. Go ahead, Carlin.
This hand was actually for Jackie. I was having trouble with my internet for the Land Use Committee. If we can go back.
Really quickly, Paul, is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, this question's for the Land Use Committee, Jackie Wong.
Okay.
The 3x3 community engagement report is out. Isn't DCAT supposed to come back to CB3 for an update on 70 Mulberry Street PS23 sometime in February?
Yeah, that will be on our February agenda. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now I see David Adams' hand. David?
Yeah, hi. I just I'm looking at the resolves on the, and I think we can concept the last resolves doesn't. If you're going to have them come back to review things, how do you go what's approved? You say we could, or let's say approves the concept of a revised of the. I'm not sure if it works this way.
Okay. Can anyone answer his question, please?
Sorry, my Zoom is not working that well tonight. Apologize. Yeah, we did go to approve, and we asked them to come back with a plan if timing allows. We understood that there were some timeline issues that they were facing in terms of funding. So if the timeline allowed for them to come back with the final plan, but that seemed to pretty much be the final plan. That's why we had approved it.
I mean, I'm just worried about I don't, just the terminology maybe have to be tweaked a bit. I don't know, but all right. Do
you want to offer an amendment?
I think we make that last resolve the first ones. We wanted to come back in case there's any changes. Maybe just reverse the order. I don't know. That we approve the design, but they wanted to come back for the if there's time to do the additionals. I just think saying we want them to come back and then say we approve it. I don't know. It's a tricky situation, as you say, because they have to come back.
There is some timing issues. I think Susan has her hand up.
Yes.
I was just going to say that, they may not have time to come back. So this covers it if they don't.
Having it first would do it as well, but all right. Okay.
Thank you. I'll take any other questions if there are any. If not, I'm done with my report.
Thank you, Paul. Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Anisha, Economic Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Good evening, everybody. We had one resolution with economic development. You all heard a little bit about the issue in one of the elected officials' reports. It's that SBS created sort of a suite of small business relief programs that were specifically targeted for low and moderate income areas and also communities of color. Unfortunately, because of the methodology that they used by using zip codes, a large portion of Chinatown was actually left out of being eligible to access the various funding streams. So this resolution is highlighting that issue and then also providing some alternatives that we heard quite a bit of testimony from a number of Chinatown groups that offered a number of really good suggestions about how to make the distribution of this type of funding more equitable, not only for Chinatown, but frankly, probably just something that SBS could use in general. And specifically for this program, and then also all future funding that comes out with this for COVID relief programs. I'll take any questions on it if there are any.
Okay, Anisha, I don't see any hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Trevor, Parks, Recreation, Waterfront.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be brief, even though our meeting was quite extensive. It mostly involved updates. We did not have any resolutions, although we did talk about the signage, the educational signage they want to install in ESCR. They are coming back next month. For committee members, please look at your agenda. There is a new date for our meeting because I believe our original or our normal date falls on the eve before Chinese New Year. So we are meeting on the Wednesday afterwards. Please take a look, because I know it's a little different from when we normally meet. Also, in the interest of trying to space things out, because we really hit a time crunch on all the issues along the East River, we're going to try and sort of tackle things throughout the months. We were on sort of a schedule before, but for next month, our agenda shouldn't be that large. And each month, we're going to try and get a resolution for each item, because I think we're entering a period where we don't have to stack so many important things at once. I see Robin has her hand up if she wants to ask me a question. And if anyone else wants a question, please raise your hand.
Robin, go ahead.
I just have a question about the changing of the date and then Wednesday. Can we stick to Thursdays? Because is there, you know.
It's just for one day, and if Susan can explain the calendar, it'd be helpful.
Yeah, there's 2 holidays in February. There's President's Day and Lunar New Year Eve, which is one of our voted upon days that we don't have meetings. There's other conflicting meetings. We already have 2 or 3 days with meetings piled up, so there just wasn't any other day. We didn't want to have Parks meeting conflict with other meetings where they had the same committee members. So it's unfortunate. It's just very unfortunate. It was one of those things that there was no good way to deal with.
And this is just for this month. We go
Right.
back to our normal Thursdays going forward.
Right.
Right. I just arranged my whole spring schedule to have something happening on Wednesdays. So I know, because I knew I had meetings on Thursday. So I'll just talk to you about that privately.
This just came up. We just discovered this at the exec committee meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Robin, we apologize. It really was just because there is holidays that are falling on that day. I apologize to you for your calendar mix up. Okay, we're going to move on now. Kay, your hand is up.
Yeah, again, Trevor. Is there any movement on the news that about the value engineering report? Because I think the larger community is also very concerned about that issue, and I'm not sure we've yet had a very clear answer on it.
We've asked for the ESCR team to come as part of their update, but we don't have any more information than the borough president or the council member. I can assure you of that.
And the Parks Department just never shows up. So I don't
No,
know
they
what-
show up. They just I know we've gotten a bit of criticism for spending a lot of time, because we spent every single month talking about the ecology center, and we've written 3 resolutions, and I've gotten some feedback about why are we always talking about that, but it is important. But hopefully for this month, Parks is there, we can get some information about the value engineering report, or the lack of, or the EIS, or whatever report. But we don't have any other information more than what Gail and Carlina mentioned tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I thought I was done, but Val?
Unmute yourself, Val. You had your hand up.
Oh God, okay. Can you ask the people that is coming if they would just state exactly where this report is in the EIS, because they have said this, but they haven't said exactly where it is. And then people come back with, where is it? So I think if they came and they stated, this is where this report is incorporated in the EIS, and they could identify that, I think that would eliminate the questions and the issues because it has been answered that it's there. So I assume people can figure out where it is in the EIS. So I think that would be helpful.
I would agree, and that's helpful, and that's exactly the same language I sent to them because they need to explain it. We can't do that as a community board. Thanks. I think that's it. You can move to the next committee. Elisa or Larissa?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. I apologize. Thank you, Trevor. We're going to move on now to May Lee, Health, Seniors, Human Services, Youth, and Education. That's a long title.
Hi, good evening. We do not have any items for the board to vote on tonight, but I did want to bring your attention to one thing, one agenda item that we are carrying over from January to February, and it is the issue of the proposed Safe Haven facility at 100 Orchard Street. That's the former Blue Moon Hotel, which is on Orchard near Delancey. So for those of you who are not familiar with the term Safe Haven, it is a facility funded by the Department of Homeless Services for street homeless, I think mainly, to have it's a form of shelter. It's, you know, they have many different types of shelters. So it's a form of shelter where there are beds, and I think they have their own room or semi-private rooms, and there's a lot of services. So a little, you know, quite different from the other type of shelter you might know where they're like sort of like in one big room, you know, all sleeping together in one big room. So there is also these facilities have a contracted social service provider who provides the services to the residents of that facility. So at the meeting, the Department of Homeless Services was invited, and also the social service provider. But the social service provider could not come, you know, at the last minute. So that's why we did discuss it a little bit, and we discussed it quite a bit. There were many questions from the committee as well as members of the public, especially those, the businesses and residents in the surrounding area. So we have all these questions, and we are carrying it over to the next meeting where the social service provider will be there, and they will be the ones to, you know, have the answers that we need. So that's next, that's February 4th, which is on a Thursday. So if you're interested in hearing about it, you should, or asking questions, you know, and hearing from the service provider, please come to the meeting. So the one more thing I just wanted, this is more for the committee members to remind you that we have 2 meetings to go to next month. We also have to go to the Transportation Committee meeting because there's an issue where that is to be decided jointly between Transportation and Health and Human Services. I sent you an email about that. So please remember to go to both meetings. You only have to go for the agenda item. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting, but it is a required, it's part of your required meeting for February. Thank you. Any questions? I guess not. Oh,
I don't see any hands, May. Oh, yes, Carlin has his hand up. Go ahead, Carlin.
Yes, question regarding the healthcare facility on East Broadway next to the Chatham Square branch of the public library. Has CB3 gotten many complaints about patients propositioning women that walk by from that location?
No.
I have not. Why, do I don't know.
No.
Okay.
Is that happening?
Yes, it is.
Is there some way people could report that? I would certainly like to look into it, but I would, you know, like to have people who have observed this be able to give some information so I could follow up on it.
Okay. All right. I'll try to document something.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, now we're going to move on to SLA, Michelle.
Hi, thanks everyone. Okay, so for the most part, the applications this month were relatively straightforward. We had a couple of withdrawals and one no-show who had a little bit of a scheduling confusion. And so we expect them to come back in February. So please check the agenda when it's sent out tomorrow morning if there was something that you were hoping to see this month, but you did not. I see my camera is frozen, so I'll turn it off. I appreciate all of the feedback on the resolutions, and just so everyone knows, for small issues like typos, we'll definitely fix that. They don't require an amendment. Also, feel free to email me before the meeting with any proposed amendments or feedback. The email you could use is cb3chair@gmail.com. I know Ed sends out the minutes ahead of time so everyone has a chance to review them. Okay, and so everyone heard the public testimony, which I guess happened like 3 hours ago now, about applicant number 10, the Parkside Lounge. So everyone knows this resolution did not pass that committee because it was a 3-3 vote. Paul, go ahead. I see you have your hand up.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of chatter about that during the public portion of the meeting tonight. Just reading over everything, and I don't know if it's possible if we can adopt the motion to that didn't pass at the committee. You said didn't pass, correct? So as
Yeah, it did not pass.
as it is written in the vote sheet.
Is there a second on that?
Second that.
Okay, great. Thanks, David. Okay. Shirley, can you share your screen with that amendment, with that resolution? Are you a chair?
No, I can share. Michelle.
Oh, Shirley has something. David has his hand up again. Shirley has something that's going to come up.
Right. Yeah, let me just find it.
David, go ahead.
Well, I want to make a motion to amend this resolution. There was a paragraph to remove, which wasn't quite clear or complete about the COVID crisis, so it's basically a replacement. But we were removing the second whereas and introducing the last whereas. I believe you have it and can share it. It would be probably better for people to read it than for me to.
Okay.
Yeah,
just
Shirley
words.
has it.
Yeah, just hang on a second. I just have to get it open.
So what this will do is to clarify the situation with COVID and especially with the roof deck and it requiring a Department of Buildings permit. So that is not the amended. That does not show the amendment.
Okay, wait, Shirley, yeah, this is not the.
Yeah.
No,
This
this
is
is
the vote sheet, but there's one that was
This
marked.
is the one you sent me.
Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing.
With the highlighting,
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought this was
Yeah,
the
okay,
updated
all right.
one.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
Yeah, Shirley needs to share it. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I was just telling Laura.
No, take your time.
I have it.
So when you bring it up, it's going to clarify that that the department that there needs to be a Department of Buildings certificate of occupancy before the SLA can issue the permit, and so we're describing that situation so that the SLA is aware that we know of it. They're going to follow their procedures, and they will not issue the license until the C of O is done. So the construction has to be done before it can actually happen. This is not simply a matter of he wants to do it during COVID. Actually, he probably will not complete the necessary work on the building to be able to use the roof space during COVID. I mean, I'm guessing that COVID is going to be, please, that we go back to normal sometime this summer.
I'm unable to share my screen, just so you know.
Okay, Linda, can you make Shirley a co-host, please?
I want to let David be. Sorry, keep going, David. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to read it then. What we would be striking was a brief sentence, whereas businesses are struggling to survive during the COVID crisis, and this business is seeking an alteration to its method of operation for an outdoor roof deck to contribute to its survival. So I'm proposing that we remove that paragraph and we add a lengthier one that says, may come up here. Be better if I read along, yay. So the dark green would be added, and that reads, whereas The New York City Department of Buildings informed CB3 that Parkside Lounge is not permitted to use the roof as an extension of the restaurant, as a certificate of occupancy does not allow it. The Department of Buildings has additionally informed CB3 that the business would need to hire a licensed design professional to submit a job to the department for review requesting a change of use. This is required for both use of the roof as permanent alteration and also for immediate use under Executive Order 2238, issued June 6, 2020, by Governor Andrew Cuomo, which allows for establishments licensed by the State Liquor Authority to expand premises to otherwise unlicensed contiguous private space under the control of the establishment. And Executive Order, the same thing for the
Yeah, Shirley, actually, can you take out that extra executive order?
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
actually, I didn't know about this part before, but and Executive Order and 126 issued June 18 by the mayor, which directed the Department of Transportation to administer an open restaurants program. So basically that last stuff is, yes, they're allowing extensions of the license just, well, by executive order without any review, as long as you have, a safe and, approved space.
If you
which
would like me to
gentlemen
explain.
can work on.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
If you'd like me to
Susan's been in
explain.
contact with us.
Yeah,
so
this is
please
what
go
I've been
ahead.
doing. So the issue is if it was approved for use, even if it wasn't licensed, but it was permitted for use before, you could use it again. You could self-certify and use it under executive order. If it was not approved for use, as this was not, then it has to be applied for as an alteration.
So I feel, I mean, maybe people want to debate this, but I feel that this is simply a clearer paragraph about that situation, and that there probably this would be able to pass by unanimous consent.
Okay, thanks. Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Anisha. Okay, is there any, if you have something to say about this particular amendment, could you put your hand up? Only about this amendment that David, that's on the floor right now. Okay, Lisa, is your comment about this amendment?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's about this issue, because I'm just confused about why we're doing this hastily at this point. I mean, in my experience on the SLA committee and in living in the neighborhood, the most difficult and most controversial things ever are often the rooftop usage and outdoor, rooftop usage. So the argument that I heard from the operator and his supporters was they need this in order to get through the pandemic. And now we're saying they can't have it during the pandemic. I believe me, I get the Parkside Lounge and its history. I used to work on that block back in 1973. And the Parkside Lounge was like, a neighborhood institution in 1973. And believe me, I've been there many times and get it. But still, a rooftop use is a big thing. And if this can't be done immediately, I guess I'd like to understand more. And what we've historically done in resolutions regarding rooftop use is describe in great detail how the sound effects of the rooftop use are going to be ameliorated. And I don't see any of that here, describing what kind of speakers would be used, how many speakers, whether or not there'd be a canopy, that sort of thing. I feel like that should be in here. Believe me, I get the importance of this, but I don't think that this has been thoroughly thought through as a long-term use.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I want to I want to reiterate, we're only talking about the amendment on the floor, not the adoption of the whole resolution. And I will just reiterate that this stuff is all done at committee and everyone is welcome to attend if they'd like to discuss that, and everyone will get a chance to vote on this resolution at the end, of course, as well. I see, Robin, I think your hand was up next. Was this about this amendment, only this amendment?
Yeah. I'm curious to know, was this the only alternative that they brought to the board? You know, are they
Sorry,
not?
Rob, again, just only about this one amendment. That's all we're talking about right now, not the whole resolution.
I understand that, but
So I just want us to get through this one amendment, and then we can
like
go to the
this
resolution.
amendment really reflects that issue. It's changing it from talking about whether it's a COVID response or whether it's a permanent change.
So
And
this
that's
amendment, no,
intervo-
but the thing about this is they would need, as we put in this amendment, you would need to get this Department of Buildings certificate of occupancy no matter what. So that's why I'm saying that this amendment is actually just, as David said, it's, if we're going to adopt this resolution, this amendment should be in there. So David, do you want to just comment on it again? I see your hand up.
Yeah. Yeah. So to the point of, is it permanent or not? If you can scroll this down a bit, we can see the previous paragraph. So we all heard Christopher speak tonight. He's the, well, I'm not sure he's a provider, but he's representing certainly the business and was at the committee meeting. He also said something tonight about needing it during COVID and needing it long-term. If I can just paraphrase what I think the business plan is, it was not presented, but it roughly goes like this. He needs revenue now, and we all understand that. But if he's going to do the expense of building the roof deck, he wants it to be permanently on the license so that he can, you know, probably pay back the loan or something of that nature. So that is what I believe is going. He is asking for a permanent extension to the license. We do understand that he could, if he had a space already, he could start using it. Well, hopefully very shortly. They paused it again, right? But he could start using it. And the street is, as he was explaining, not Pleasant, it's on Houston. So he wants to use the roof deck. He may or may not be able to get this done in time to use the roof deck during COVID. And so I feel that what I've proposed in green, it's really a more accurate situation. And if we're going to have a larger discussion over the other things, can we pause that until we just decide on whether this to adopt the green instead of the red?
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, does anyone else want to discuss just this amendment? As David said, this is the amendment that's on the floor, and I understand that striking the whereas clause about COVID might bring in the whole thing, but okay, wait. So I saw in the chat that Olympia, Ellen, is it actually you with your hand up?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, no, you're fine, go ahead.
But I guess I became Olympia 2.0. But this isn't about this specific amendment. It's related to it because it's about the resolution. So I can wait when.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Ellen. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other hands about this particular amendment. Is there?
Can we call a question on this amendment portion?
Thank you, Trevor. Okay, so is there anyone opposed? I'm just going to do a voice vote, and if we need to do a full, and just again, only on this amendment, not on the whole resolution. Is there anyone that is opposed to this and wants to do a full vote? Okay, I'm hearing no opposition to this, so we will adopt this amendment. Okay, so now we can go back to discussing the resolution. And again, I will say that we discussed this extensively at committee. There were 11 people who came in support of it, and only one person against it, and one person emailed us against it. We heard people speaking at the beginning of this. I'll say one reason why there aren't a lot of these, if people are thinking, why aren't there other roof decks like this? It's because this is a weird case in a lot of ways, that there's a contiguous roof deck. Because it's a one-story building, and there aren't that many types of buildings in the in CD3. So, Chris, are you on the operator? If maybe he can describe the sound mitigation plan. Okay. Can someone, Alyssa or Linda, can you move Christopher Lee or give him the opportunity to speak. Olympia, sorry, what's wrong? Go ahead.
I was thinking,
I did
since
give
there
him the
are a lot
ability.
of
Oh,
there are a
sorry.
lot of committee members that want to talk about full board members and about that. He can talk at the committee, but not at the full. You know what I mean? Like, let's
Right, no,
first
no.
hear.
I understand, but I just think that he might be able to answer some of the questions preemptively.
So we're gonna put it in the resolution now. His plan.
No. Just so he could describe it verbally. The sound mitigation plan, which Lisa brought up.
Yeah, but then we need to introduce it in the resolution. That's why I'm not sure. I think we're gonna waste some time. But go ahead.
I mean, not necessarily. I'm not saying that we are, if someone makes an amendment to add it, but all right. So, okay, Olympia, do you want to ask your question first then? Go ahead.
I would like to hear from Alex, who's much more experienced, but the points that Lisa have brought up, and if you don't know, I also serve on the Nightlife Advisory Board, so I'm very familiar with a lot of these issues, and I'm pro nightlife. But fundamentally, my concern is that the rooftops the transmission of the noise doesn't work like with adjacency, right? And so that's why we have specific experts who, design these plans about noise mitigation. And, I don't care if nobody shows up for or against the project. I think we need to do our due diligence as members of the committee. And that's why I would rather you take it back to your committee. So parliamentarian, what should I move to, like, that you discuss this at the committee?
Can I speak
It
to
ought
the
to be the
timing of
first thing that
that?
you say, but since nobody ever does this, you can go ahead and make a motion after you've talked a lot. But you should say, I move that we refer this back to committee, and that is a debatable motion.
Yes. So as many women, apparently, I talk a lot. Sorry, David.
No, that's not what I meant at all, Olympia. Everyone does it. I said that very clearly. Everyone on this board.
Thank you. So I move to get this back to the committee.
Second.
Okay, can I speak to that for technical reasons?
Sure, go ahead.
If the owner doesn't withdraw, there's a 30-day notice. So if the owner doesn't voluntarily withdraw to come back, he has done his due in going to the community board and can now go to the SLA 30 days after he provided the notice. So if he doesn't voluntarily withdraw, we lose our right to comment. However, you can ask him if he would voluntarily withdraw.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Olympia, would you like me to ask the applicant that, or would you want to go ahead with this motion on the floor?
No, I would rather you ask the applicant, obviously.
Okay. David, there are other people with their hands up. I kind of want them, rather than sending, we're at the point right now where the motion's on the floor with sending it back to committee, right? So should Olympia withdraw that motion?
No. You should ask the applicant. That's necessary information for this. And by the way, Olympia is entitled to do the first speaking on behalf of the motion, and that qualifies as what she just did. So now you should probably ask the applicant.
Okay, Chris, do you want to go ahead and describe your?
Well, is he going to voluntarily withdraw and come back to the board to discuss mitigations?
And Susan, could he do that for February, or is it too late?
He could do that for February. That's the reason we post the agenda the day after the board, is for things referred back to committee.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure that Chris knew that. All right, Chris Lee, are you there?
Hi, yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yeah.
Can you take our questions first? I would appreciate it.
We have to know if he's willing to come back or not.
Okay.
I'm not willing to voluntarily withdraw my application to the board, no.
This would be to come back next month and just talk about specifics of mitigation for the roof sound.
I'm happy to talk about them right now. We are on a ticking clock here, guys. I mean, talking about, as I said in my opening statement, the CDC on December 29th said it'll be 10 years that we're going to be having socially distant services and all of this, all of our nightlife businesses. So the DOB certification is required. To be honest, that's required by my landlord. I have to amend my lease anyway. All of that, everything has to be done above board. So that was on my mind anyway. Regarding sound mitigation, sound is a science, right? I mean, there's a science to the way the sound waves move and they make things vibrate. And as the sound is coming from one place, as it travels away, it makes things vibrate and it makes sound. And you can completely mitigate that. And there's a lot of science behind it. I'm going to put up extensive walls around the space, and the sound will go up. There will be a covered part in the back. I mean, this process has allowed me to really work out with my neighbors what their concerns are, and I've addressed all of them. The sound would be funneling out towards Houston Street, which is just traffic. You know, I'm not here. I hope you realize that I'm not here to cut corners, but there isn't a lot of time left for me to go back to another committee meeting and do this again next month. I mean, the ball needs to get rolling.
Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, so you heard that the applicant is not willing to voluntarily withdraw. So that means that he could go straight to the SLA without any community board input if we send this resolution back to the committee for next month. Olympia, do you,
I mean, I would like to hear from people like Alex, who is familiar with this process, if it's possible.
Okay, all right, Alex, go ahead.
Well, I agree with Olympia and with Lisa with respect to the importance of sound mitigation for outdoor spaces and understanding it. This applicant should have just anticipated what these issues were and submitted this in advance. That having not been done, I understand that he's trying to work with residents to work this out. I'm not quite sure what his background or experience is. The committee members who have been sitting on the committee for a while have some natural, accumulated experiences based on the fact that many applicants and all the hotels hire sound specialists, so we can identify issues and different ways to resolve issues, which Lisa's very familiar with, having sat on the committee. With respect to the SLA process, sure, it's easier if he withdraws his application and there's a notification of the SLA that it's being heard next month, but unless anything has changed, and this is pre-COVID and post-COVID, the hearing process before the SLA is not 1 month. So it's unlikely that he's going to be heard by February. And we would have an opportunity to review this. I appreciate that this is a corner business and it's on Houston, but I also appreciate that it's also on what is essentially a small residential street with a very narrow street bed, probably not more than 25 feet across. And we're relying on the applicant to tell us that the sound is going to be mitigated out through Houston through the whatever plan he has in place. But as I understand it, we didn't have any actual specific documented plans to rely on to review to understand how the sound might be mitigated and what the consequence of the different sound mitigation would be.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Robin, go ahead.
You calling on me, Michelle?
Yep, go ahead, Robin. Thank you.
It's, if my vote tonight is going to determine whether or not the Parkside Lounge lives or dies, I feel like I need more information. And that information is, about other, is this a last resort, building a rooftop deck, or has every other, outside option been looked at? I, of course, wasn't in the meeting. So those kinds of things would be important to know. Because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like, if we don't vote a certain way, then we're putting him out of business. And I certainly don't want that responsibility.
Okay. Thanks, Robin. Chris, I'll give you like 30 seconds to answer that, please. Chris Lee, go ahead.
Sorry,
Okay,
folks.
go ahead.
I believe she's asking me about other options I've explored for business. And yes, we've opened up on Attorney Street. I'm part of the outdoor dining program. I've made more red beans and rice than any of my Cajun ancestors. I've worked with local residents. We've set up a place on the street. I've spent a lot of money on that. I'm completely COVID compliant, unlike some of the places in the neighborhood. It's just really difficult, and that corner is not safe for traffic reasons. I mean, it's not safe because of the number of crazy people that are a higher percentage of people than there were before, because we just had more people on the street. It's just really difficult. And when people do stop, they don't want to stay very long because it's not the most pleasant place in the world. And I understand that. Does that answer your question? Are you talking about, I mean, I've applied for every grant. I've gone out for every loan. I've explored every avenue that I can. I mean, we're not allowed to sell takeout anymore, drinks to go. That was brief. I can't have anybody indoors. So I don't know. Am I answering the question?
Yeah, you answered my question. Thanks. I mean, I know there's the open
Okay.
street program. I don't know if that street could become an open street, for example, but that's a long process.
Yes,
so-
Thank you. What I was allowed to use, I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Robin, for your question. Thank you, Chris. Okay, the next hand I see up is David Crane.
Yeah. I don't think the applicant was as prepared as he could have been. I do wish that the full committee had been there. We would have been able to do a more complete job of this, but I do not believe that the applicant was prepared or forthcoming about these kinds of plans. I also will say there was very, very little opposition. In fact, there was a lot of very vocal support for doing this, both because people like the establishment and do trust it. And they don't feel that there's going to be a noise problem. If it had been in my backyard, I'm pretty sure that I would not feel the same way. But there was one gentleman who lives directly, windows directly facing it, well over the backyard, but right around the corner, who was against it. But as I recall, that was it. There was a pretty widespread public support, and that's why I, for instance, did not propose a motion tonight to not support it, which I had toyed with doing. I also don't want us to send this back to committee, though, because there is that 30-day clock. I mean, I hear that it's likely that, from what Alex is saying, maybe Alex will speak more to that. Anyway, but as it stands, I don't support sending this back to committee tonight.
Thanks, David. Okay, Trevor, you've had your hand up for a minute. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just, with the motion that's on the floor, I don't understand why we're going to send this back to committee. I understand this was discussed in committee, and if it goes back, is there going to be further discussion? There were some points brought up by Alex. So I'm just curious as to what happened in committee and why weren't these issues raised at the first committee meeting? I'm just trying to figure this out, because sending it back to committee is the easy way out for a lot of us as board members, but we tend to trust our committee. So I just don't want to send it back. I'd rather just discuss it tonight and ask the question of, if these issues weren't raised, what happened at this committee meeting?
Okay, thanks, Trevor. Susan, I saw your hand up. Do you have a technical thing to weigh in on here?
Yeah, yes, I'm going to address the 30-day notice technical issue. They certainly, the SLA takes a while, and they certainly won't hear it within a month. However, as far as I am aware, we have never commented on a license after the 30-day notice where the applicant hasn't agreed to at least not give any final recommendations without the community board. That being said, I really, I think since Chris has not even applied, and I am not weighing in on whether it should go back to committee or not. That's not something I should do. I'm just weighing in on whether technically it can be done. I would say, Chris, since you haven't even applied for the DOB permit yet, and you have to have a licensed person come up with the plans. And I believe those plans would be, addressing these issues. I'm not seeing how it would hold you up. I understand you're anxious, but since you have to do all that DOB stuff anyway, I don't see how it would hold you up.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I am totally willing to agree to any of the stipulations design-wise, any of that, like if you could put it together ahead of time and say, Chris, if you are agreeing to do this and you're willing to put this off until next month and come back with your sound mitigation proposal and like detailed plans of where the sound boards will be, which I will do, and you're going to tell me that you will approve it, then I will withdraw. I'm not, what am I trying to say here? Sorry. I'm not willing to go back through this whole process again. Like I did submit a complete application. I did submit a diagram on December 10th. There was some disorganization that came out in that in the committee meeting. And I understand that there's some people that didn't see the diagram. I understand that happened. I'm here. This helped me really get on board with my neighbors. The person that David was speaking about was referencing, he and I spent a lot of time together in the last couple of days. And he's got some things, some adjustments he wanted me to make himself that would make him completely happy with it. And I'm happy to do it. There will be absolutely no sight lines into anybody's apartment from my roof deck. And that's really the big outcome. And with that comes the sound mitigation. Sound, directing it up and out onto Houston Street is possible. If you can't see into the apartment, I can stop the sound from going in there too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. Susan, did you, is your hand still up? You're good. Okay.
Oh, no, that's
Alex, go ahead.
With respect to residents, they're very uneducated about sound mitigation practices, right? They can have a generalized fear that something may be noisy, but most of them do not have familiarity or experience dealing with sound engineers or sound consultants and reviewing sound mitigation plans. So whether or not someone comes to speak for or against a plan and doesn't actually voice a concern about the sound or noise coming from an outdoor space, I agree with Olympia that it's still our responsibility to review that and to try to mitigate it as much as possible. It doesn't seem like the board has a general inclination to deny this applicant, but certainly if we have the time, and it seems that there is the time here, just based on how this application, how I understand it's going to progress based on what the committee people who are there say and what the applicant says, we should address how to mitigate sound to the greatest extent that it's possible. And also putting up a wall doesn't necessarily mitigate noise on the other side of the wall. So that I just find is to be incorrect. There are other things that need to be done in addition to putting up the wall, or it needs to be of a certain material. But that may be something that you discuss with a consultant or an engineer if you're going to do a proposal.
I have the same sound engineer that worked on my back room that will be working on my roof. I mean, the neighbor was shocked to hear that I even had back room people in the back room. My soundproofing is good. I've been running the Parkside. We've had live bands since 2002. I understand soundproofing. That's what I'm saying. And you're right. It's not just a wall. It's a wall that supports the soundproofing that goes on.
I appreciate that you agree with me. So yeah. It's very different from something that's contained in within four walls. So,
okay.
And it has been the single, I think the single quickest increasing 311 in the area is rooftop noise. And you're talking about rooftop noise for rooftops that are not on the second story. This is on the second story, or it would theoretically be a second story if it wasn't a rooftop.
Okay, thanks, Alex. So are you suggesting, just because the motion we're discussing is whether or not we're sending this back to committee, so are you supportive or against sending it back to committee?
Sounds that he's withdrawing, so we don't even need to send it to the
No, he's not.
No, he's not. No. sorry, just Alex, just to clarify, are you supportive or against sending this resolution back to committee? Just to clarify.
I think that this was not a properly addressed application on our end and the applicant's end. So yes, it should go back.
Okay, okay, thank you. Ellen / Olympia, I saw your hand up next.
Hey, thanks. So as a SLA committee member, this is the type of discussion that was lacking when we met and reviewed the applicant. And I had stated that this application, as we saw it, was incomplete. And at that point, it really was. And the whole point of having completed applications is so that committee members, as well as the public, can have time to look over the information, review the information. And this is not the type of meeting where you can just walk off the street, come in and understand all the technicalities involved. And it does require some type of research, some type of history, some type of expertise in order to make a considered decision,
Ellen,
right?
I'm so sorry.
So,
Ellen, I'm so sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but I have to, because at this point now we're rehashing the whole meeting and we're criticizing. We really have to move forward and make a decision tonight. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm using this as a point in terms of why these things are important, right? So I'm not saying anything else. I'm saying this is the type of discussion that is needed at committee. And we need complete applications, not applications with critical missing information, Alicia.
But Ellen, you were at the meeting. And so
yes, and I did. I brought this up. So my point here again is we're having to discuss it at full board because we didn't have that information, right?
Roll call vote, please, on the amendment.
Okay, hold on one second. David Crane, your hand is up next.
Roll call has been called.
Yeah, called. The question has been called by me because I had my hand raised. You can't jump out and say that, just for clarification. I called the question.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay,
It does not require a second. It does not require debate.
Okay, all right. So I'm just going to do a voice vote like I did before. Is there opposition to sending this back to committee?
Actually, the question is there opposition to going to a vote on that, or do people want to continue to debate? That's what has to happen now.
Sorry. Is there
if the majority
opposition
of people want to
to-
continue debating, then we must continue debating.
Okay, is there opposition to ending debate to move to a vote? Okay, hearing none, we can move into a vote. I'm just gonna try this with a voice vote. Is there any opposition to sending this to committee, back to committee, excuse me? Okay, I'm not hearing any opposition to sending this back to committee. Sorry, okay, I think David
Sorry,
Adams. just
Michelle,
off mute.
I missed that. That was not clear that you were asking us something.
I'm asking if there's any opposition to sending this. The motion on the floor is whether we should send this resolution back to the committee. I'm asking if there is any opposition to sending this back to committee.
I thought we're doing a roll call vote rather than send it back to committee.
Well, I'm trying to a voice vote first, Carlin. If I hear any opposition, then we'll go to a roll call vote. So speak now or forever hold your peace. Is there any opposition to sending this resolution back to committee? You can shout it out. Raise your hand.
I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just a little lost in terms of we want to send it back to committee to review the resolution because we think that the resolution needs to work, or that
it doesn't really matter. You can send it back to the committee for any reason, but I think the concerns raised by these.
That's why I'm asking.
I know. I'm saying just for I understand. I'm just saying that that's not the question we're deciding on. The question is if we send it back to the committee to consider again, and the concerns raised about why is because the application might not have had full information about the sound mitigation plan.
Yeah, so Michelle, I think the silence is the reason.
Yes.
I think we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, all right. So that sounds like there's no opposition to the motion to send this resolution back to committee. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, thanks everyone. And Shirley, you can mark that in the minutes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, I conclude.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
So, thank you everyone for your input on that item. And thank you to the Parkside Lounge owner, Christopher. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're going to move on to our approval of the vote.
Do you need me to take?
Go ahead, Shirley.
Do you need me to take a vote?
Yeah, it's gonna go back.
Vote on what are we voting on?
Are we voting on approval of all?
Everything but the
resolutions?
item that's going back to committee for their further review.
Oh, so this is our final vote?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. It wasn't clear. Okay, David Adams,
Yes.
Ron Altman,
Yes. Present not voting. Transportation number 2. I work for New York City DOT. Thank you, everyone.
number 2. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, Jesse Beck,
Yes.
Dominic Berg,
Yes.
Lee Berman,
Yes.
Carlin Chan, sorry. I was
Yes.
giving you a Spanish twist.
Yes.
Jonathan Chu,
Yes.
David Crane,
Yes.
Felicia Cruikshank, Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Alistair Economakis,
Yes.
Shirley Fennessy, yes. Ryan Gilliam,
Yes.
Deborah Glass, okay. Andrea Gordillo,
Yes.
Herman Hewitt,
Yes.
Trevor Holland,
Yes.
Linda Jones,
Yes.
Valentina Jones,
Yes.
Tatiana Jorio,
Yes.
Lisa Kaplan,
Yes.
Olympia Kazi,
Yes.
Joseph Kearns, Michelle Cooper-Smith,
Yes.
Mei Lee,
Yes.
Wendy Lee,
Yes.
Alicia Lewis Coleman,
Yes.
David Louie,
Yes.
Ellen, can you tell me how to pronounce your last name? Ellen Liu?
It's pronounced like L-A-W. It's actually Ellen Lowell.
Luo?
Lowell, like L-A-W, like the law.
L-A-W. Oh, okay, because it's spelled L-U-O, L-A-W.
Right, it's not English.
But no, I know, I got it. I'm just getting the pronunciation. I want it to be sensitive.
Thanks.
Okay. Michael Marino,
Yes.
Alexandra Militano,
Yes.
Michael Perlis,
Yes.
Tariq Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Rangel,
Yes.
Damaris Reyes,
Yes.
Richard Ropiak,
Yes.
Thomas Rosa,
Yes.
Robin Chattel,
Yes.
Heidi Schmidt,
Yes.
Larissa Shaneberg,
Yes.
Anisha Stephen,
Yes.
Sandra Struther,
Yes.
Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez? Maybe?
Yes.
Yes, okay, gotcha. Rodney Washington? Kathleen Webster, I got you this time, Kay.
Yes. Thanks, Julie.
Jackie Wong? Jackie?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're still here. Okay,
Sorry.
Ricky, are you here? Juan? Okay, great. All right, I think that's everybody. Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, hi, it's Deborah Glass.
Oh, Deborah, how did I miss you? Wait, yeah, I had you and then maybe you didn't unmute in time. I got you now. Okay, everybody's good. Anybody else? Joseph Kearns, did you show up again, or Felicia wasn't here the whole time? So Joseph, are you back? All right, so I guess that's everybody.
Thank you so much, Shirley, for tonight. I know you did the first full board meeting, so I appreciate that. And so this, if there's any new business, this is the time to address it. Any being none, any old business? Okay, I just want to end tonight with thanking everyone and also showing great appreciation for the members of the public that gave their input and much consideration. Thank you all, and I wish you all a good night. And I'll see you at the full board in February and at your committees. Bye-bye now.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
Felicia.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.